Marshall Peak, Chapter 5088, Wu Xing He. Looking up, Yang Kai saw that there was a place that looked like a camp in front of him where several dozen black ink clansmen were looking in their direction. The one standing at the front had 2 horns on his forehead and his burly figure made him look like some kind of 2-legged ox demon. Those several dozen auras apparently came from this group. Surprisingly, they were mostly feudal lords while the black ink clansman who looked like an ox demon was a territory lord. There were many powerful black ink clansmen guarding the portal of this sealed world, and their leader was a territory lord. It went to show how important the black ink clan considered this place. The feudal lord, who led Yang Kai to this place, gazed at the territory lord and cupped his fist. "Sir Mai Cheong." The territory lord named Mai Cheong nodded lightly. Just by taking a glance at Yang Kai, he figured out the latter's identity. "Found a new artifact refiner?" The feudal lord replied, "It was Sir He Yuan who found him." He Yuan, Mai Cheong snorted. Perhaps he had some grudges against He Yuan. Yang Kai could see a hint of disdain flashing through his face at the mention of He Yuan. "What's his rank?" The feudal lord replied, "According to Sir He Yuan, he's a great master artifact refiner." "A great master? He Yuan is pretty lucky." Mai Cheong was surprised. After all, since this plan had been started years ago, all the black ink disciples who knew even a thing or two about artifact refining had been gathered here. It was hard to find a great master artifact refiner in the outside world. Even in this place, there were only a small number of great masters. "I'll leave him to you, Sir Mai Cheong. I still have to go back and report the matter to the royal lord." Mai Cheong nodded. "Good. Just leave him here. You can go back now." The feudal lord went on to say, "The royal lord wants me to tell you and Sir Ching Lei to work harder and complete this task as soon as possible." In an instant, Mai Cheong appeared annoyed. "It's not like Ching Lei and I can accelerate the process in any way. The human artifact refiners are the ones developing it." The feudal lord asked impassively, "Do you want me to pass on your words to the royal lord, sir?" Mai Cheong felt his brow twitching. Feeling vexed, he uttered, "Ching Lei and I will work harder to supervise them. Tell the royal lord to rest assured." It was only then that the feudal lord bowed his head and flew towards the portal. After the portal closed, Mai Cheong turned to look at Yang Kai and sneered, "You're pretty bold. I hope your skills in artifact refining are just as great as your audacity." Yang Kai put on a fawning smile as he wouldn't dare to say anything in front of this overbearing man. Mai Cheong beckoned to a subordinate and ordered, "Bring him to see Ching Lei." Yes, upon receiving the order, the feudal lord directly pushed his black ink strength and engulfed Yang Kai with it before flying further into the sealed world. Just a moment later, they arrived at a huge valley where there was a grand hall in the middle of the mountain wall. There were a lot of black ink clansmen moving around the grand hall. The feudal lord turned his head and ordered, "Come with me." He then shuffled into the grand hall. Naturally, no one stopped him. Yang Kai followed him closely. Soon, they moved across the grand hall and arrived at an open-air platform on the other end. There was a well-built figure standing on the platform. Looking down from this position, one could watch over the entire valley. The feudal lord, who led Yang Kai to this place, saluted the well-built figure, "Sir Ching Lei." Without turning his head, Ching Lei asked in a deep voice, "The portal of the sealed world was opened just now?" Although he was responsible for guarding this place, he was a territory lord after all. He certainly could detect that the portal was opened earlier. The feudal lord replied respectfully, "An artifact refiner has been sent over from the royal city." Ching Lei turned around and examined Yang Kai before nodding. "What's his rank?" "It's said that he's a great master artifact refiner." Ching Lei said impassively, "Not bad. Leave him to me." "Yes," the feudal lord replied, then left the place respectfully. Yang Kai stood there silently and waited for Ching Lei to speak to him. However, Ching Lei didn't seem to have the intention of saying anything to Yang Kai as he remained unmoving. Yang Kai had no idea what the other man was waiting for. Despite that, he had figured out some important information not long after he arrived in this sealed world. There was no doubt that Mu Guang Royal Lord treasured this sealed world highly. Not only did it require a special token to open the portal, but there were also 2 territory lords guarding this place. One of them was Mai Cheong, who was responsible for guarding the portal, and the other was Qing Lei. Yang Kai had no idea how many feudal lords there were in this place, but he was certain there were a lot of them. The number of powerful Black Ink clansmen here showed how cautious Mu Guang was. Although Yang Kai always knew this would be a difficult task, he still felt frustrated at this moment. He could ignore the feudal lords, but it wasn't easy to do anything without alerting the territory lords. As Yang Kai followed Qing Lei's gaze, he saw a huge warship hovering in the middle of the mountain valley. The size of this warship was similar to the one he saw in Blue Sky Pass in the past. It was much larger than a typical warship owned by a human squad, similar to the size of a warship used by a battalion. The appearance of the warship was imposing. Since Yang Kai was unable to get closer, he couldn't ascertain the capabilities of this warship. However, it had been 20 years since those from Yin-Yang Pass discovered the first prototype Black Ink clan warship, so the newer one must have been improved at least a little. At this moment, there were a lot of human artifact refiners that had gathered together in this mountain valley. Nevertheless, not every artifact refiner had the right to refine this kind of warship. Most of the artifact refiners could be ignored. The most pressing issue for Yang Kai was to find out who was the artifact refiner that was in charge of developing the warship. Only by doing so could he come up with a solution. All of a sudden, a figure shot into the sky, which caught Yang Kai's attention. As he looked intently, he realized that the person was a human, not a Black Ink clansman. The person was an elderly man who was in the 7th Order Open Heaven realm. However, he appeared exhausted, as though he hadn't taken a break from work for a long time. The elderly man walked up to Qing Lei and saluted him. "What's wrong, Sir Qing Lei?" Qing Lei shot him a dispassionate glance. "Here's a new artifact refiner. Help him settle in." It was then that the elderly man noticed Yang Kai, who was behind Qing Lei. Elated, and replied, "Understood." Upon finishing his words, he beckoned to Yang Kai, "Come with me." Yang Kai nodded and flew towards the mountain valley alongside the elderly man. Before they landed, the elderly man turned to look at Yang Kai and asked, "What's your name?" Yang Kai cupped his fist. "Yang Kai." The elderly man nodded. "So it is little brother Yang. You're already so strong at such a young age. You do have a promising future. By the way, I'm Wu Xinghe." Wu Xinghe. Yang Kai turned serious the moment he heard this name. Before he left Yin-Yang Pass, Tang Qiu had given him a list of a dozen people who had gone missing on the battlefield. Those from Yin-Yang Pass speculated that they had been corrupted by the Black Ink clan and turned into Black Ink disciples. These dozen people had studied artifact refining before and shown some talent for it. Of course, when they went missing, they could only be considered novices in artifact refining. However, if they fell into the hands of the Black Ink clan and started focusing on studying the Tao of artifact refining, they would have a chance to grow. Those from Yin-Yang Pass speculated that the person in charge of developing the warship was one of those people. Tang Qiu told Yang Kai to pay more attention to the information regarding the people on the list when the latter arrived in the Black Ink clan's domain. Yang Kai had never expected that not long after he entered this sealed world, he would meet one of the people on the list. Could this person be the one who was in charge of developing the warship? Yang Kai was uncertain about it. From the looks of it, even if Wu Xinghe wasn't the most important figure in this project, he wouldn't be insignificant. Otherwise, Qing Lei wouldn't have told him to help Yang Kai settle in. Suppressing the emotions in his heart, Yang Kai cupped his fist. "So, it is Senior Wu." Wu Xinghe glanced at him and chuckled. "We're both in the 7th Order Open Heaven realm, so you don't have to call me a senior. Moreover, we're in the Black Ink clan now, so we don't have to comply with the etiquette of the humans." Yang Kai was already used to human etiquette, and although he was a 7th Order Open Heaven realm master, he could only be considered a rising star compared to the other much older veteran 7th Order masters. Upon hearing Wu Xinghe's words though, Yang Kai stopped being overly polite and addressed the older man in a different way, saying, "Senior brother Wu." Wu Xinghe replied with a smile, "What's your rank in artifact refining?" Yang Kai replied honestly, "Great master." "What field are you particularly well versed in?" "Personally, I'm good at refining offensive and defensive artifacts. I can build flight-type artifacts as well, but that will take a longer time." Upon hearing that, Wu Xinghe nodded. "In that case, you shall work with me. I happen to need more people on my side. I shall trouble you from now on then, senior brother Wu. No worries. By the time they finished speaking, they arrived at the bottom of the mountain valley. Yang Kai looked down and saw many artifact refiners working on the warship. There were also some feudal lords walking around that seemed to be supervising them. Wu Xinghe directly led Yang Kai to the edge of the mountain valley where there were a lot of houses. Wu Xinghe pointed at those houses and said, "This is where we can get some rest and cultivate. The 3 houses on the left are empty, so you can choose one of them." Although Black Ink disciples are considered lowly in the Black Ink clan, artifact refiners like us are treated fairly well. If you need resources to cultivate, you can go over there and get some. Then, he pointed at the hall on the side. Not only are there materials of different orders, but there are also a lot of spirit pills. They are for us to use. Yang Kai was astounded. It seems that everything is provided for us. Wu Xinghe replied with a smile, "They've prepared everything for us so that we can work harder. It requires a lot of energy to refine artifacts. If we can restore ourselves quickly, we can put more effort into making artifacts." The Black Ink clan is aware of that. Yang Kai nodded to show that he understood what the other man was saying. The Black Ink clan has a lot of resources that are hard to come by on the human side. In this place, you can get a set of 7th order materials from the Black Ink clan to cultivate with ease. Of course, you can only get one set at a time, and you can only get another set after refining the ones you have. Marshall Peak, Chapter 5089, Solution. Since you're a newcomer, you can get used to the environment first. Look for me tomorrow, Wu Xinghe said, then turned around to leave. Yang Kai then watched him leave. After the older man was gone, he shuffled towards the 3 houses on the left. Wu Xinghe said that these 3 houses were vacant, so Yang Kai could choose one of them at random. He didn't have any specific demands, so he just chose the one furthest away from him. Upon pushing the door open, he realized that the facilities were quite simple. There was only a table, chair, and bed. There was also a token on the table. After picking it up, he realized that this was the token that could control the restriction around this house. He spent some time refining the token, then activated the barrier. This restriction couldn't be considered powerful as it could only prevent others from eavesdropping or disturbing the one getting some rest in the house. It should be the same for the other houses. Nonetheless, this was enough for the artifact refiners here. Just like Wu Xinghe had said, it required a lot of energy to refine artifacts. When they were exhausted, they needed such a place to restore their energy with peace of mind. After Yang Kai was done with all that, he took a stroll around the mountain valley. Then, he found the hall where he could get some resources and entered. The Black Ink clansman responsible for managing the resources was a feudal lord. Faced with Yang Kai's request, he didn't even question him. He directly fished out a set of 7th order materials and passed them to him. This made Yang Kai feel rueful. It had to be noted that in the Great Passes, it was rare for anyone to refine 7th order materials to cultivate, for there was an acute shortage of resources on the Black Ink battlefield. Most of the time, even the 8th order division commanders couldn't refine 7th order materials to cultivate. Of course, the shortage had been alleviated since the introduction of the void yin-yang mirrors. Yang Kai had no idea about the circumstances in other Great Passes, but in Blue Sky Pass at least, the human cultivators could use the best possible resources to cultivate now, provided that they had enough military merits. The structures around the mountain valley were so simple that one could see everything clearly at a glance. Apart from the warship in the middle of the mountain valley, Yang Kai didn't find anything that was worth his attention. After getting what he requested, he returned to his house and cultivated in silence. He didn't forget to keep track of the time, of course, and the next day, he headed to the warship following Wu Xinghe's order. From afar, he could see many people working on the warship. Fluctuations of energy were seen coming from every corner. At least 100 people were trying to build this warship, all of them artifact refiners. Yang Kai had seen artifact refiners repairing warships in Blue Sky Pass, and it was equally bustling at those times, therefore, he wasn't surprised one bit. However, that was in the inner sanctum, after all. It must have been difficult for the Black Ink clan to have found so many artifact refiners. Furthermore, There must be more artifact refiners who were currently not working on the warship and were resting. Upon Yang Kai's arrival, some artifact refiners shot him curious glances, but they soon stopped paying attention to him. He soon found Wu Xinghe, who was busy working on the warship somewhere. Wu Xinghe was apparently refining an offensive artifact with full attention. A flame was seen flickering from his hands. The flame was scorching hot, and Yang Kai couldn't immediately identify what it was. All the artifacts on the warship had to be custom-made and were quite different from the artifacts used by cultivators. After all, the warship was huge, so the artifacts that had to be installed on the vessel wouldn't be small. That way, when the artifact, as an array node of an offensive array, was activated, it would be powerful and lethal to the enemies on the battlefield. Yang Kai appeared beside Wu Xinghe and greeted him. Wu Xinghe was swamped with work as his forehead was beaded with sweat, so he just nodded and glanced to the side. You came at the right time. Help me refine these materials. If there's anything you don't understand, you can ask junior brother Sun Ju over there. Yang Kai turned his head and saw a lot of materials that had been piled up beside Wu Xinghe. All of them were precious as they were the materials needed for refining the artifact. It wasn't difficult for Yang Kai to refine these materials, therefore, he could be considered Wu Xinghe's assistant now. He knew that he still wasn't skillful enough to be directly involved in developing the warship despite being a great master, so it was appropriate that he became Wu Xinghe's assistant. This kind of task was not simple, but it wasn't critical either. It suited his current rank in the Tao of artifact refining. In fact, he wasn't the only assistant of Wu Xinghe. Before his arrival, there was already a young man who was doing this task. He should be the person named Sun Ju that Wu Xinghe had mentioned. Certainly, Yang Kai already noticed him. The fluctuations of energy coming from Sun Ju suggested that he was in the sixth order open heaven realm. It wasn't certain which cave heaven or paradise he was from. Yang Kai cupped his fist at him. Junior brother Sunday. Sun Ju flashed a smile at him. You must be senior brother Yang. Apparently, he had heard about Yang Kai from Wu Xinghe. Yang Kai nodded. While Sun Ju never stopped working, he asked, have you ever taken part in developing a warship before? Yang Kai shook his head. No. In fact, artifact refining was just a hobby of mine and I rarely made any artifacts when I was on the human side. Upon hearing that, Sun Ju nodded. I see. Why don't you refine this seventh order metal element material first? This task is suitable for you given your cultivation. We'll need it at a later time. Certainly, Yang Kai wouldn't disagree. He then sat down with his legs crossed and picked up the seventh order metal element material. Following that, he fished out his hammer and circulated his power before striking the material with his own technique. Sun Ju arched his brow with surprise. Thousand tempering art. Are you from Divine Cauldron Cave Heaven? Yang Kai shook his head. I'm from Yin-Yang Cave Heaven. I learned this artifact refining technique from a senior brother from Divine Cauldron Cave Heaven. Sun Ju commented, you've fully mastered this technique. That's why I thought that you're from Divine Cauldron Cave Heaven. Many thanks for your compliment, but compared to you, I'm still not skillful enough, Yang Kai replied humbly. Sun Ju shook his head with a smile. I have simply practiced a lot. I started focusing on refining artifacts since I came to the Black Ink clan. It's been several hundred years since then. Yang Kai was surprised. Sun Ju's words suggested that he started focusing on refining artifacts after he became a Black Ink disciple, probably on the Black Ink clan's orders. Therefore, it seemed that the Black Ink clan had already started preparing to build a warship several hundred years ago, or perhaps even longer. Otherwise, these Black Ink disciples couldn't have achieved so much. Although Sun Ju was one order below Yang Kai, he was also a great master artifact refiner. Furthermore, he was more skillful than him when it came to his mastery of artifact refining. This was proven from his way of refining these materials. According to Yang Kai's observation, Wu Xinghe, who was focused on refining the offensive artifact now, was a Grandmaster artifact refiner. An artifact refiner like Wu Xinghe was already able to refine high-rank artifacts. In fact, the one he was crafting was a kind of high-rank artifact, though it wasn't certain if he could successfully complete it. After all, It was more difficult to refine an artifact specifically for a warship than an average high-rank artifact. It took a talented and experienced artifact refiner to achieve this. Therefore, even a Grandmaster artifact refiner might fail in his attempt to craft such an artifact. Over the following days, Yang Kai continued to assist Wu Xinghe, and nothing major happened. Sun Ju, who worked with him, was a talkative person, so Yang Kai managed to gather a lot of useful information through his conversations with him. According to Sun Ju, there were about 300 artifact refiners that had gathered together in this mountain valley, with the 3 of them being Grandmasters. There were 2 more Grandmasters apart from Wu Xinghe, Wang Saibo and Guan Ning. Below them, there were 30 Great Master artifact refiners. Although the rest of the artifact refiners were not talented in artifact refining, they were good enough to handle some miscellaneous tasks. It was this large team that was building a warship for the Black Ink clan. Just like Wu Xinghe, Wang Saibo and Guan Ning were on the list which was given to Yang Kai by Tang Qiu. They were the targets he had to investigate. During this period of time, Yang Kai came to know more about the capabilities of this warship. Compared to the one he saw in Blue Sky Pass, the one before his eyes was indeed a significantly better version. It seemed that the artifact refiners here were working hard to improve their skills. This was terrible news for the humans. Fortunately, even though the capabilities of this warship had been enhanced, it still couldn't meet the Black Ink clan's needs on the battlefield. In other words, this warship was not good enough, and certainly not comparable to the warships used by the humans. Even if it was deployed on the battlefield, its usefulness would be quite limited. The warship had been greatly improved in just 20 years though, so if their progress went unhindered, a lot of warships owned by the Black Ink clan would appear on the battlefield in the near future. By then, the humans would be doomed. Now, Yang Kai had successfully snuck into this place, so he had to come up with a solution to settle the issue here. In fact, it wasn't hard to deal with this issue. He could simply kill all 3 Grandmaster artifact refiners like Wu Xinghe. Without these Grandmasters, the development of the warship would come to a halt. Although the other artifact refiners still had room for growth, they couldn't possibly become Grandmasters. Over the years, the Black Ink clan had filtered a lot of Black Ink disciples and only found 300 artifact refiners. Most of the artifact refiners were not gifted in this Dao, so even if they were allowed to grow, they wouldn't become Grandmasters. Killing Wu Xinghe and the others could be said to be the simplest way to destroy their plan once and for all. By then, no one could be in charge of developing the warship, and the threat facing the humans would be resolved. However, if Yang Kai did so, his identity would instantly be exposed. There were also 2 territory lords who were monitoring this place, so once he was exposed, he didn't have the confidence to escape. Furthermore, Grandmaster artifact refiners like Wu Xinghe were extremely valuable assets to the humans too. They only worked for the Black Ink clan because they had been corrupted by Black Ink's strength. It would be much better to purify them and bring them back rather than kill them. For the time being, Yang Kai couldn't think of a perfect solution, nor did he have any idea how he could flee from this place once his identity was exposed. Therefore, he could only wait patiently and play it by ear. Fortunately, the warship in this place was still not usable, so he had time to come up with a plan. Marshall Peak, Chapter 5090, Purifying Wu Xinghe. In the blink of an eye, 3 years had passed since Yang Kai arrived at this sealed world. During this period of time, the warship was continuously improved. On the other hand, Yang Kai's skills in artifact refining also grew day by day. When he was a newcomer back then, his skills in artifact refining were inferior to those of Sun Ju. However, 3 years later, he was now a much better artifact refiner than the latter. Although he still wasn't a Grandmaster, he had grown to be a more accomplished artifact refiner than before. Even though it had something to do with his aptitude and hard work, his conversations with the other artifact refiners had helped him grow rapidly as well. Wu Xinghe's attentive guidance was especially important in this regard. It should be noted that before Yang Kai left Blue Sky Pass, he had spent 10 years studying artifact refining, and his teacher was an artifact refining grandmaster like Chai Hao. During that period of time, Chai Hao selflessly taught Yang Kai all of the Divine Cauldron Cave Heaven's secret techniques in artifact refining. Yang Kai's knowledge of artifact refining was just as great as that of any grandmaster. What he lacked were practice and experience. After he arrived at the Black Ink clan's domain, he spent 8 years refining artifacts for feudal lords. As a result, his skills in artifact refining improved tremendously. Now, he was sent to this sealed world as he spent his days with a grandmaster like Wu Xinghe and a great master like Sun Ju. It was expected that he would reach greater heights in the Tao of artifact refining. Over the years, Wu Xinghe realized Yang Kai's talent in artifact refining and witnessed his growth, so he spent even more time giving him guidance. Even Wang Saibo and Guan Ning now saw Yang Kai in a different light after observing his performance. Whenever Yang Kai had any questions regarding artifact refining, these two grandmasters would teach him everything they knew. As Yang Kai intentionally got closer to them, he formed a strong bond with these three grandmasters over the past 3 years. After 3 years of observation and planning, Yang Kai already had a vague plan in mind. If this plan could be carried out successfully, not only would he be able to crush the Black Ink clan's dream of building warships, he could also escape unscathed. However, it was difficult to execute this plan, for there were a lot of factors that were beyond his control. A slight problem could completely derail his plan. Therefore, even though he already had a plan, he was still waiting for a suitable opportunity. One day, Yang Kai, who was swamped with work, suddenly looked up and saw a figure flashing across the sky above the mountain valley. The figure was heading towards the sealed world's portal. That figure was none other than Qing Lei, who was responsible for guarding this place. There were a total of 2 territory lords and about 100 feudal lords here, with a large number of high-rank Black Ink clansmen accompanying them. One of the territory lords, Mai Qiong, was responsible for guarding the portal while Qing Lei was tasked with monitoring the artifact refiners who were developing the warship in the mountain valley. Basically, Mai Qiong would never leave the portal. On the other hand, even though Qing Lei stayed in the palace above the mountain valley most of the time, he would leave this sealed world every 6 months. Yang Kai had asked Wu Xinghe about it, and according to the latter, Mu Guang regarded the development of the warship extremely highly, so the royal lord wanted Qing Lei to head to the royal city to make a progress report to her every 6 months. Every time Qing Lei returned from the royal city, he would take Wu Xinghe and the other grandmasters to task and urge them to finish perfecting the warship as quickly as possible. He had probably been reprimanded by the royal lord, which led to him venting his anger on these human artifact refiners. Nevertheless, perfecting a warship was highly dependent on their skills in artifact refining. Although Wu Xinghe and the others were artifact refining grandmasters, they were unable to create something as great as the warships owned by the humans. Therefore, the same scene would repeat itself every 6 months. The reason Qing Lei suddenly left his grand hall must be that he had to head to the royal city to report on the progress as usual. As expected, a moment later, Yang Kai felt a faint fluctuation of space principles coming from the portal which soon disappeared. It must be the movement from opening and closing the portal. The duration was short, so the average 7th order open heaven realm masters might not be able to detect it. However, to a master in the Tao of space like Yang Kai, he could easily sense such a fluctuation. Yang Kai waited for a bit to make sure that Qing Lei was gone before he put down what was in his hands and said to Sun Ju, "Junior brother Sun, I'm exhausted. I'm going to rest for a bit." Looking up, Sun Ju saw that Yang Kai's face was pale, and his aura was weak. Therefore, he nodded and replied, "Sure thing, senior brother Yang. Just leave it to me." Artifact refiners were treated well in this place. Nevertheless, it required a lot of energy to refine artifacts, so the artifact refiners would frequently use up their energy and need to rest. Yang Kai's request wasn't unusual, so Sun Ju wasn't surprised one bit. "Many thanks, junior brother," Yang Kai said, then leaped off the warship and flew towards the place where the artifact refiners resided. Instead of returning to his place though, he headed straight to a certain 3-story building. This was where Wu Xinghe resided. As one of the 3 artifact refining grandmasters, the treatment he received was naturally better than the other artifact refiners. Yang Kai visited this place frequently because he would ask Wu Xinghe questions about artifact refining from time to time. Half a day ago, Wu Xinghe had returned to his home to get some rest as he was exhausted. Now, he should be inside this building. Despite seeing all this from afar, the Black Ink clansmen, who were patrolling around the area, didn't come over and question Yang Kai. Instead, they just walked on by. Yang Kai knocked on the restriction and called out, "Senior Brother Wu." Moments later, the restriction around the building was deactivated and Yang Kai pushed the door open and entered. When he reached the second floor, he saw that Wu Xinghe was seated with his legs crossed on his bed. There was a set of seventh-order materials around him, and the energy fluctuations around him suggested that he was refining those resources. "Senior Brother Wu." Yang Kai cupped his fist at him. Despite being disturbed while getting some rest, Wu Xinghe was not annoyed. Instead, he looked curiously at Yang Kai and asked, "What's wrong, Junior Brother Yang?" Yang Kai replied, "I faced a problem when I was refining a certain material earlier. I wanted to ask you about it." Wu Xinghe asked, "What kind of problem did you face?" "The thing is, when I was refining an 8th order firestone, I used the landslide technique that you taught me. However, I realized that it slightly damaged the integrity of the firestone." "Why is that?" As he spoke, he shuffled towards Wu Xinghe. Seeing that the older man was deep in thought, Yang Kai swiftly manipulated the local space principles. In an instant, space was frozen solid. Wu Xinghe was pondering on Yang Kai's question when the turn of events took place, so he hadn't been able to react at all. When he looked up, he saw that Yang Kai had clapped his hands together as a dazzling light came right at him. A dumbstruck Wu Xinghe had never expected that Yang Kai would launch a sneak attack on him and instinctually wanted to resist. However, he had been resting here because he was exhausted from artifact refining, so he didn't have much energy to begin with. Furthermore, since he became a Black Ink disciple, he had been focusing on improving his artifact refining skills following the Black Ink clan's orders and had not fought with anyone for the past 1,000 years. Therefore, despite being a 7th order open heaven realm master, he was unable to fully utilize his power. On the other hand, Yang Kai was an experienced fighter whose strength significantly surpassed the other cultivators in the same order. Hence, it was expected that Wu Xinghe was unable to counterattack or even resist. Before Wu Xinghe could even condense his world force, his forehead was slapped by Yang Kai. A horrifying power penetrated his small universe and caused him to fall into a dazed state. Following that, the dazzling and pure light completely engulfed him. A strange sound was then heard. While Wu Xinghe was engulfed in the white light, something like a dark fog began leaking from his body and was purified into nothingness. He appeared to be in pain, but his expression soon became tranquil. A moment later, Yang Kai retracted his hands and vigilantly paid attention to the surroundings. After letting Yang Kai in earlier, Wu Xinghe reactivated the restriction to prevent anyone from disturbing them. However, Yang Kai was still worried that his actions would attract the Black Ink clan's attention. That was the reason he had to wait for Qing Lei to leave before making a move. Qing Lei was a territory lord after all, so if he noticed the anomaly, Yang Kai wouldn't be a match for him. Fortunately, Yang Kai acted swiftly and decisively. Only a few breaths of time had passed since he activated purifying light. Furthermore, he deliberately sealed the surrounding space and made sure that Wu Xinghe was unable to resist. Hence, the restriction around the building was not triggered. Everything is going well. Upon making sure that the Black Ink clan were not alerted, Yang Kai let out a breath. "Forgive my disrespect, Senior Brother Wu." Yang Kai apologized to him and sat down cross-legged in front of him. Presently, Wu Xinghe's face was pale. After all, Yang Kai's palms did not only contain the purifying light, but also his own power, which penetrated Wu Xinghe's small universe and caused it to shake. That was how he suppressed Wu Xinghe and made sure the latter couldn't resist. When Wu Xinghe heard the other man's voice, his vision refocused. While staring fixedly at his face, he said doubtfully, "You." With a solemn expression, Yang Kai said, "Senior Brother Wu, what I'm about to tell you might sound inconceivable, but you have to believe that what I'm going to say is true. We don't have much time left, so I'll be blunt. First of all, you should know that I was never corrupted by Black Ink strength, nor am I a Black Ink disciple. I'm simply pretending to be one." I knew it. Although Wu Xinghe appeared shocked, he was also relieved. The Black Ink strength in his small universe had been rapidly purified, so the moment he regained his senses as a human, he suspected that Yang Kai had never been corrupted by Black Ink strength. After all, Yang Kai was able to dispel the Black Ink strength in his body, so there was no way he would be corrupted. Now, it indeed seemed to be the case. Yang Kai had been pretending to be a Black Ink disciple, and he had managed to fool the Black Ink clan. What kind of technique was that? Wu Xing, he asked curiously. It's called purifying light, Yang Kai explained. It could be said to be the nemesis of Black Ink strength. It's something that the humans mastered a few dozen years ago. Upon hearing his explanation, Wu Xing, he muttered, it's no wonder the Black Ink clan have been talking about there being no new Black Ink disciples recently. So, that's the reason. He paused for a moment and asked, can the purifying light prevent me from being corrupted again? Yang Kai shook his head, no. If you come into contact with Black Ink strength again, you'll still be corrupted. Fortunately, there's no Black Ink nest in this sealed world, nor is it filled with Black Ink strength, so as long as you're careful enough, you won't be corrupted by Black Ink strength. Marshall Peak, Chapter 5091, There's a Big Problem. Yang Kai was relieved at the fact that the Black Ink clan had set up their warship development site in this sealed world. This gave him room to carry out his plan. Just like he had said, there was no Black Ink nest in this sealed world, nor was it flooded with Black Ink strength. Therefore, as long as Wu Xing he was careful enough, he wouldn't risk getting corrupted again. It wouldn't have been possible in any other Black Ink clan territory as they were all practically filled with Black Ink strength. Even if Yang Kai helped dispel the Black Ink strength in Wu Xing his body using purifying light, the latter would soon be corrupted again. When that happened, Yang Kai's identity would be exposed. How could he carry out his plans in such an environment? Senior Brother Wu, I'm from Yinyang Pass. On the army commander's orders, I've come here to look for artifact refiners like you all who are developing the warship for the Black Ink clan and make sure that this project fails. On the other hand, you're the first breakthrough point I've selected. I'll need you to work with me for the following plan. Qing Lei has just left the sealed world. Based on past experiences, I believe he'll return in half a day. That's the amount of time we have. There was a solemn expression on Wu Xing his face as he asked, what's your plan? What do you want me to do? Yang Kai replied, first of all, I need you to lure Senior Brother Wang and Senior Brother Guan to this place. I'll make a move and purify the Black Ink strength in their bodies so that they will regain their senses as humans. Although they're 7th Order Open Heaven Realm Masters, they've been completely focused on artifact refining for centuries now, so their fighting instincts have grown dull. If we work together and launch a sneak attack on them, there shouldn't be a problem. Then, I want the three of you to gather all the artifact refiners together. I'll dispel the Black Ink strength in their bodies at once so that they can recover their true selves. Of all the artifact refiners, Wu Xing he and the other two were not only artifact refining grandmasters but also 7th Order Open Heaven Realm Masters. The other artifact refiners were much weaker. Other than the fact that they were less competent than the three of them when it came to artifact refining, they were mostly in the 5th Order and 6th Order Open Heaven Realm. Therefore, as long as Yang Kai could settle Wu Xing he and the other two, the rest of the artifact refiners wouldn't be an issue. Wu Xing he nodded gently, and then, assuming that everything goes to plan and the Black Ink clan are not alerted, how are you going to leave this sealed world? Although Qing Lei is not around, my Qiong would never leave the portal. If you can't defeat him, you'll never be able to leave this sealed world. Moreover, you have to bring so many of us with you. Yang Kai replied, other than the three of you, I can keep the rest of the artifact refiners inside my small universe. It's not a problem to bring them with me. However, the three of you are in the same order as me, so I can't keep you inside my small universe. Therefore, I need you three to sacrifice a part of your small universes so you regress to the 6th Order. Upon hearing that, Wu Xing he was astounded. You want to escape this place on your own? With a serious expression, Yang Kai replied, other than me, all of you are not able to resist Black Ink strength. Only by staying inside my small universe would you be safe. Wu Xing he frowned, but that will be a huge burden on you. These 300 artifact refiners were all Open Heaven Realm Masters. If they all entered his small universe, it would be a tremendous burden on Yang Kai. As a result, his strength would undoubtedly be affected. Yang Kai was already less powerful than my Qiong to begin with, so if his abilities were further weakened, he wouldn't have any chance of escaping from my Qiong. Yang Kai said, I can deal with 300 people staying inside my small universe. There will be some negative impact, but it won't be an issue. On the other hand, it's indeed difficult to deal with my Cheong as he would never leave the portal. There are no other ways apart from trying to force my way out of this sealed world. Certainly, it would be wonderful if I can fool him into opening the portal for me. However, as soon as I make a move here, the Black Ink clansmen around us will notice. There's no way we can do it secretly. Wu Xinghe nodded. So, your plan is to bring us all away so that the Black Ink clan will never be able to finish this warship. It's indeed a simple plan, but it's also the best way to crush their ambitions once and for all. Yang Kai let out a breath. Is there a problem with this plan? Wu Xinghe stared fixedly at him and replied, there's a big problem with this plan. Certainly, Yang Kai knew that there were all sorts of problems with his plan. Nevertheless, he was on his own in this sealed world where he was surrounded by enemies. Even the artifact refiners could be considered the Black Ink clan's allies, so any negligence would cause his plan to be exposed earlier than he had hoped. Unfortunately, he didn't have a better solution. Therefore, he wasn't surprised when Wu Xinghe said there was a problem with his plan and he simply asked humbly, what is it? Wu Xinghe replied, even if you successfully bring all of us away, you still can't stop the Black Ink clan from developing a warship. Yang Kai furrowed his brow and asked, why is that? Wu Xinghe explained, that's because we're not the ones leading the development of the warship. Although Wang Saibo, Guan Ning, and I are contributing to this project, we're just assistants. There's someone else who is in charge of this project. Yang Kai was flabbergasted, really? Who is it? I thought the three of you are the only artifact refining grandmasters here. Wu Xinghe let out a sigh, a person named Nian. He's more talented than Wang Saibo, Guan Ning, and me when it comes to artifact refining, and he's just one step away from becoming a great grandmaster. Yang Kai was dumbfounded. Nian. Why have you all never mentioned him before? It had been 3 years since he arrived at this sealed world. Although Yang Kai had tried to gather information through his conversations with other Black Ink disciples, he had never heard of this Nian before. That led him to believe that Wu Xinghe and the other 2 grandmasters were the ones who were in charge of this project. If the person in charge of developing the warship was someone else, Yang Kai's plan naturally wouldn't work. Just like Wu Xinghe had said, even if he managed to bring all of the artifact refiners here away, he still couldn't stop the Black Ink clan from developing a warship. That was because the key person behind this project was someone he had never met before. In fact, if Yang Kai hadn't prepared to carry out his plan on this day, he would never have found out about it. He's not in this sealed world, so no one would talk about him in front of you. Yang Kai's plan was thoroughly derailed now, but he soon composed himself. That was because he knew that there would always be factors that were beyond his control, so he had to play it by ear. It was just that a variable like Nian had appeared now. What's his background? Yang Kai asked curiously. Wu Xinghe, Wang Saibo, and Guan Ning were on the list given to him by Tang Qiu, but Nian was not. Where did he come from? I know little about his background. Wu Xinghe shook his head. Although we've spent many years together, we don't really talk to each other. Other than the discussions on artifact refining, we rarely come into contact with one another. Moreover, he's an arrogant person because of his talent in artifact refining. He doesn't even have any regard for me. More importantly, it's said that he's the one who initiated the plan to build a warship for the Black Ink clan. He was. Yang Kai said through clenched teeth. However, as a Black Ink disciple, Nian was loyal to the Black Ink clan. Since they were on different sides, it couldn't be said that Nian had betrayed the humans. Rumor has it that he doesn't have an outstanding aptitude. When he was corrupted by Black Ink strength and became a Black Ink disciple, he was not valued by the Black Ink clan at all. He almost lost his life on several occasions when he was brought to the battlefield. Before he became a Black Ink disciple, he had never come into contact with the Tao of artifact refining. When he saw that the artifact refiners were valued by the Black Ink clan, he decided to study the Tao of artifact refining. That was when his life changed. Although his aptitude in cultivation is average, he's extremely gifted in the Tao of artifact refining. In a short time, he significantly improved his skills in artifact refining and became a grandmaster. Then, He launched the project of building a warship, which gained the support of the Black Ink clan. However, despite being a Grandmaster, he's still struggling to build a warship. As you can see, the warship in the mountain valley is not comparable to true warships. Young Kai nodded. Since he's the one who has proposed building a warship, where is he? Why have I not seen him over the past 3 years? Wu Xinghe replied, he's trying to achieve a breakthrough right now. Given his aptitude in artifact refining, he could grow to be a great Grandmaster. However, you're also aware that it requires both skill in artifact refining and powerful cultivation to become a great Grandmaster. A person has to be in the 8th Order Open Heaven realm to become a great Grandmaster. He's trying to break through to the 8th Order Open Heaven realm? Yang Kai was astonished. Wu Xinghe nodded solemnly, indeed. I don't know whether he'll succeed. In fact, 1 year before your arrival, he was already taken away by the Black Ink clan to prepare to break through to the 8th Order. Although the environment in this sealed world was terrific, it was still a sealed world after all. As Nyan wanted to ascend to the 8th Order, this place was naturally not suitable. That was the reason he had left this place many years ago. This led Yang Kai to believe that Wu Xinghe and the other 2 Grandmasters were the ones in charge of this project. This kind of misunderstanding could have led to severe consequences had he acted rashly. It couldn't be helped though, as no one had mentioned Nyan to Yang Kai before, so how was he supposed to know that this guy was the key person behind this project? Senior brother Wu, you said that Nyan's aptitude in cultivation wasn't high? Yang Kai suddenly thought of something. Yes. He was already a 7th Order Open Heaven Realm Master when he left, however, even that was because he had the help of Black Ink strength. His original limit was the 6th Order, Wu Xinghe replied. Yang Kai was dumbfounded. Nyan's original limit was the 6th Order. In other words, he had originally broken through to the 4th Order Open Heaven Realm. This kind of aptitude was indeed average among the cave heavens and paradises. However, Black Ink strength could help an Open Heaven Realm Master break through their limits. Nyan, whose limit was the 6th Order, was already a 7th Order Open Heaven Realm Master when he left this sealed world, and he was now going to attempt breaking through to the 8th Order. It was no wonder Wu Xinghe said that this guy was an arrogant person. As far as Yang Kai knew, Open Heaven Realm Masters who managed to break through their natural limits with the help of Black Ink strength would have their temperaments changed drastically, just like Liu Ziyan, who was Gui Liao's Black Ink disciple. Moreover, when Black Ink disciples tried breaking through their limits, they had to face a huge risk and any negligence would cause them to self-destruct. Yang Kai had witnessed such an incident in the Black Prison many years ago. Nyan was already lucky enough to have ascended to the 7th Order, and he was now trying to make it to the 8th Order. This was no different from committing suicide. Marshall Peak, Chapter 5092, To Act or Not. The Royal Lord takes this matter extremely seriously. Since Nyan is trying to achieve a breakthrough, I believe the Royal Lord will give him all the support he needs. The Royal Lord might even personally assist him. If the Royal Lord makes a move, Nyan might be able to succeed. The success of Nyan's breakthrough was related to the Black Ink clan's future, so it was expected that Mu Guang wouldn't sit on the sidelines. Yang Kai initially thought that Nyan wouldn't succeed in ascending to the 8th Order, however, he wasn't so sure now if Mu Guang decided to help. No one knew what methods the Royal Lord had. Regardless, this matter had to be dealt with accordingly, otherwise, even if Yang Kai managed to take all of the artifact refiners away from this sealed world, he still couldn't stop the Black Ink clan from carrying out their plan. This made him fall into a dilemma. He initially intended to execute his plan today, but a variable like Nyan came out of nowhere all of a sudden. Fortunately, there was still room for maneuver. At this moment, Yang Kai was relieved that this sealed world was not filled with Black Ink strength, otherwise, his plan would have come to a halt at this point. Presently, he had to make some changes. After giving it a thought, he said, Senior Brother Wu, we have to confirm whether Nyan is dead or alive. It would be great if he lost his life during his breakthrough, however, if he returns safely, that'll mean he's successfully become a great Grandmaster. By then, the warship will be perfected. What do you want to do? Wu Xinghe asked. Yang Kai shook his head, I don't have a solution right now, we can only wait. After all, It's not like we can ask the Black Ink clan about it. During this period of time, you have to be cautious to avoid coming into direct contact with the Black Ink clan. There's no ambient Black Ink strength in this sealed world, so as long as you don't get too close to the Black Ink clansmen, you won't be corrupted. If you happen to be invaded by Black Ink strength, you have to immediately inform me and I will purify it for you. Got it? Wu Xinghe nodded, then said, as for Wang Saibo and Guan Ning, do you want to dispel their Black Ink strength only when you're in the final stages of the plan, or do you want to act in advance? Yang Kai asked, what do you think? After pondering on it for a moment, Wu Xinghe replied, the risk will be increased if we act now. After all, even if they regain their human nature, they'll still be at risk of getting corrupted again. However, they're 7th Order Open Heaven Realm Masters and Artifact Refining Grandmasters. What's more, they frequently come into contact with me. Guan Ning is especially sensitive, so I'm worried that I'll accidentally expose myself. We'll act in advance, then. Yang Kai directly made a decision, I'll need you to work closely with me. Got it. I'll inform you when everything is prepared, Wu Xinghe nodded. Also, I want to take control of this sealed world's portal. That way, it'll be easier for us to flee when executing the plan. Upon hearing that, Wu Xinghe shook his head, that won't be easy. My Cheung has never left the portal over the years. How are you going to take control of it? Yang Kai replied with a smile, I have my own methods, however, I'll have to pass through the portal. Does that mean you have to leave this sealed world once? Wu Xinghe asked. Yang Kai nodded, En. Do you have any idea how we can do it? After a moment of deliberation, Wu Xinghe replied, I can have you head to the royal city to buy some materials for me. I believe the Black Ink clan won't turn me down. That sounds good. However, there will be a Black Ink clansman who will follow you. The 2 territory lords will never leave this sealed world, so the person who will go with you will most likely be a feudal lord. That's fine. I'll make sure that the feudal lord won't notice whatever I do. Since the other man was so confident, Wu Xinghe stopped trying to dissuade him. After they discussed the matter for a while longer, Yang Kai left and returned to his own house to get some rest. A few days later, Qing Lei was seated on the platform that was above the mountain valley. As he looked down, he was able to monitor everything that was going on in the mountain valley from his position. No anomalies could be hidden from him. With that said, nothing major had happened since the day he started guarding this place, and the human artifact refiners had always been working hard to perfect the warship. Unfortunately, many years had passed, but the thing they created was still not usable. Just then, a figure shot up from the valley and landed in front of him. Qing Lei lifted his gaze and realized that this person was one of the artifact refining grandmasters, Wu Xinghe. Wu Xinghe saluted him respectfully, Sir Qing Lei. What's wrong? Qing Lei asked impassively. Wu Xinghe replied, I need some materials that we are running low on in this sealed world. Will you please allow me to go to the royal city to buy them? Upon hearing that, Qing Lei furrowed his brows. What materials do you need that have to be purchased in the royal city? Wu Xinghe randomly mentioned some materials, which were all quite precious. Qing Lei replied, got it. I'll tell someone to send them to you. Although those materials were valuable, there was never a lack of resources in the Black Ink clan. Moreover, this project was related to the Black Ink clan's future, so the royal lord was fully supportive of it. Regardless of what materials they needed, they just had to make a request, and someone from the royal city would send them over. Wu Xinghe seemed to have expected this kind of response, so he said, Sir, the quality of these materials is critical. Someone who is not proficient in artifact refining might not be able to fight the appropriate ones. As such, I have to personally head to the royal city. You want to personally go there? Qing Lei was surprised. In the past, Wu Xinghe had asked for more materials on several occasions, but he only came over and told him what he needed, and the materials would be sent to him. He had never requested to personally head to the royal city. Wu Xinghe nodded, I have to go there to make sure that all the materials are up to standard so that the progress won't be held up. Some of the materials they sent us previously were substandard and could not be used. Qing Lei became fidgety. You and the other 2 grandmasters are in charge of this project now. If you're gone, who will continue developing the warship? After giving it a thought, Wu Xinghe suggested by saying, "Why don't I tell someone to go over there on my behalf?" Qing Lei asked, "Who is it?" Wu Xinghe replied, "The newcomer, Yang Kai. His aptitude in artifact refining is just as good as mine, so he'll definitely grow to be a grandmaster one day." Qing Lei didn't understand what aptitude in artifact refining had to do with the purchase of materials. However, since Wu Xinghe had recommended this person, he decided to stop questioning him. He thus nodded, "He'll be the one, then. I'll tell someone to accompany him." Saying so, he waved his hand. The next moment, a feudal lord behind him stepped forward. Qing Lei ordered, "Bring that human to the royal city and come back quickly." Then, he passed a token to the feudal lord. After taking the token, the feudal lord flew towards the mountain valley alongside Wu Xinghe. A moment later, Wu Xinghe called out to Yang Kai, who was getting some rest in his place. As Yang Kai was told what to do, he nodded. "You have to come back quickly," Wu Xinghe ordered with a solemn expression. Yang Kai stared fixedly at him and nodded, "Don't worry, senior brother Wu. I'll come back as soon as possible." He then said to the feudal lord on the side, "Please." Without saying anything, the feudal lord led Yang Kai to fly towards the portal. When they arrived at the portal, the feudal lord passed the token to Mai Qiong, who was guarding this place. Since the token was authentic, they were allowed to leave. The moment the portal was opened, Yang Kai and the feudal lord subsequently dashed out of it. In the blink of an eye, the feudal lord passed through the portal and arrived in the outside void. When he turned his head though, he realized that Yang Kai was nowhere in sight. This startled him for a moment, for it had never happened before. Supposedly, since they entered the portal at the same time, they should reappear together. Nevertheless, he was the only one there at the moment while Yang Kai was missing. While he was puzzled, the portal before his eyes contorted slightly. Following that, Yang Kai's figure came into his sight. Although he found the incident strange, he didn't read too much into it and just beckoned to Yang Kai, "Let's go." He then flew towards the royal city. The sealed world wasn't far away from the royal city. When Yang Kai was led to the sealed world from the royal city back then, it only took them an hour to arrive. Therefore, 1 hour later, Yang Kai and the feudal lord came to the royal city. With the feudal lord leading the way, they soon reached a street where all sorts of resources were sold. It took Yang Kai another hour to purchase all the materials that Wu Xinghe wanted. Yang Kai didn't intend to stay in the royal city for long, and the feudal lord apparently wanted to go back as soon as possible, hence, they soon left the royal city. 1 hour later, before they arrived at the sealed world's portal, Yang Kai felt that something was coming from behind. When he turned his head, he saw a large ship charging forward in their direction. In the blink of an eye, the large ship got very close to them. Yang Kai and the feudal lord certainly noticed it. Seeing that the large ship wasn't going to stop, they quickly moved to the side. Even so, Yang Kai was almost hit by the large ship. Upon stabilizing himself, he lifted his gaze and saw that the large ship had moved across several hundred kilometers ahead. He frowned at the sight. Although the large ship had brushed past him quickly, he clearly detected 2 powerful auras from the vessel. One of them was a territory lord while the other was an 8th order open heaven realm master. Putting the territory lord aside, the 8th order open heaven realm master gave off a violent and dangerous aura, as though he would explode at any moment. Yang Kai was astonished. He had pretended to be a Black Ink disciple and snuck into the Black Ink clan's territory twice, but he had never come across an 8th order Black Ink disciple before. Usually, an 8th order open heaven realm master wouldn't be corrupted by Black Ink strength unless a royal lord personally made a move. However, in every major battle, the royal lord would have to deal with an old ancestor from the human side, so they wouldn't have any spare energy to use their secret technique to corrupt 8th order open heaven realm masters. If they did so, they would be giving the old ancestor a chance to injure them. Hence, there were some 7th order Black Ink disciples, but 8th order Black Ink disciples were extremely rare. The direction the large ship was heading suggested that it was going to the sealed world. A strange idea suddenly sprang into Yang Kai's mind. Would it be so coincidental? The feudal lord turned to look at Yang Kai, and upon making sure that the latter was fine, he continued moving forward without saying a word. Yang Kai quickly followed him. A short while later, they arrived at the sealed world's portal. At this moment, a large ship was parked in the void as it was waiting for the portal to open. The large ship was the one that Yang Kai had seen earlier. Marshall Peak, Chapter 5093, Return of Nyan. By the time Yang Kai and the feudal lord reached this place, the sealed world's portal was slowly opening. The two figures on the deck noticed them and turned their heads. One of them was a territory lord while the other was the 8th Order Open Heaven Realm Master that Yang Kai had detected. Upon closer look, he realized that the 8th Order Master had a bloated figure, which made him look like a ball. His head was right above his figure, as though his neck didn't exist. Sarcomas could be seen all over his skin, looking like horrible abscesses. Just by standing there, this bloated person exuded a violent and dangerous aura. Even the territory lord beside him wasn't willing to stand close to him. The moment Yang Kai saw this person's appearance, he realized his identity. This person was none other than the Nyan that Wu Xing he had mentioned. Although Yang Kai had never seen him before, this person's appearance suggested that he had broken through his limit with the help of black ink strength and achieved something that couldn't be achieved through ordinary means. However, his life was also at risk now due to the hidden dangers in his small universe. Nyan only made it to the 4th Order when he ascended to the Open Heaven Realm, so the 6th Order was his natural limit. He was already lucky enough to have ascended to the 7th Order with the help of the black ink strength. Now, he even managed to make it to the 8th Order, which was simply inconceivable. The Royal Lord must have taken action personally, otherwise, Nyan couldn't have achieved this. It could be said that Nyan was in a perilous situation, for he gave off a feeling that he might explode at any moment. However, he was still safe and sound. Perhaps Mu Guang had used an incredible technique to ensure his safety when he ascended to the 8th Order. In that case, he would most likely become a great grandmaster. A great grandmaster would definitely be able to refine a warship. Perhaps the Black Ink clan would have their own warships in no time and sail them across the battlefield. It wouldn't be like in the past when their warships were practically useless. At that instant, Yang Kai felt a sense of urgency. Back then, when he heard about the existence of Nyan from Wu Xing he had no choice but to change his plans. Still, it never crossed his mind that Nyan could break through his limit and ascend to the 8th Order so soon. Fortunately, he was certain that Nyan was alive at the very least, and he could act accordingly. While Yang Kai was in his thoughts, Nyan suddenly asked, "Are you a newcomer?" Yang Kai promptly cupped his fist. "Greetings, sir. I've been here for 3 years." Upon hearing that, Nyan asked, "Are you the one who was sent here by He Yuan?" Yes. Yang Kai had no idea how the other man found out he was He Yuan's Black Ink disciple. Nevertheless, it went to show that Nyan was able to get his hands on the sensitive information that only the most important Black Ink clansman knew. In other words, the Royal Lord truly treasured him. "Where were you?" Nyan asked. Yang Kai honestly reported to him. Fortunately, the materials that Wu Xing asked him to buy were indeed precious. Qing Lei could be easily fooled because he knew nothing about artifact refining, but the same trick couldn't be used on Nyan. Luckily, Nyan didn't intend to probe him further and just nodded gently before he stopped talking. As the portal was opened, the territory lord and Nyan dashed inside while the ship remained anchored outside. After they entered, Yang Kai and the feudal lord also flew into the sealed world. Presently, Mai Cheung was busy handling the territory lord and Nyan, so he couldn't pay a lot of attention to Yang Kai. After asking some questions, he simply let Yang Kai pass. After leading Yang Kai to the mountain valley, the feudal lord left, for he had to report to Qing Lei on the completion of this mission. Yang Kai sauntered towards Wu Xing his residence and gently triggered the restriction. A moment later, a gap appeared in the middle of the restriction, then Yang Kai walked inside. On the 2nd floor, Wu Xing was seated with his legs crossed. There was some faint black ink strength lingering around his figure. Presently, he was continuously circulating the power of his small universe to resist the black ink strength. Yang Kai wasn't surprised at the sight. He walked up to Wu Xing and clapped his hands. The next instant, a pure and dazzling light engulfed Wu Xing. A sizzling noise was heard as the black ink strength inside Wu Xing his body soon disintegrated. Wu Xing his clothes were already soaked in sweat as he let out a breath. You came back pretty quick, junior brother. Yang Kai replied, I wouldn't let you be at risk. Before he left the place some time ago, he already realized that Wu Xing he had been invaded by black ink strength. That was the reason he had to come back in a hurry. If he returned any later, Wu Xing he would have been corrupted and become a black ink disciple. When that happened, Yang Kai's identity would have been exposed. Of course, Yang Kai reckoned that Wu Xing he would kill himself at the most critical moment to ensure that the secret remained safe. On the black ink battlefield, human soldiers had always been willing to sacrifice their lives for the sake of the greater good. Wu Xing he was corrupted by black ink strength when he came into contact with Qing Lei. This sealed world was not filled with black ink strength, so he didn't have to worry about anything as long as he was cautious enough. However, Wu Xing he was standing too close to Qing Lei at that time. As a territory lord, Qing Lei naturally released black ink strength around him. On the other hand, Wu Xing he wouldn't dare to resist lest his secret was exposed. That was how he was corrupted. Fortunately, he was only stained with a small amount of black ink strength, otherwise, he would have become a black ink disciple again before Yang Kai returned. Is everything prepared? Wu Xing he asked with concern. Yang Kai nodded, yes. Wu Xing he had no idea what move Yang Kai had used to fool the feudal lord that had tagged along with him. However, since he had said as much, it meant that the matter was indeed settled. Nian has returned, senior brother Wu, Yang Kai said. His back. Wu Xing he was startled. With a solemn expression, Yang Kai nodded, I came across him on my way back. He's now an 8th order master. Upon hearing that, Wu Xing he sported an anxious expression, that's terrible news for us. What he and Yang Kai hoped was for Nian to explode and pass away when trying to achieve an ascension so that no one would be able to help the Black Ink clan finish their warship. Now that Nian had returned safely though, it was bad news for them. After giving it a thought, Wu Xing he asked, can Nian be saved? Yang Kai shook his head, no. His limit is the 6th order, so his small universe can only bear the power of the 6th order. The reason he's alive right now is because of the black ink strength. The moment I dispel the black ink strength in his body, his small universe will explode. The light in Wu Xing his eyes went out, what a shame. If Nian could be saved, it would be good news for the humans. After all, artifact refining great grandmasters were rare. However, Yang Kai made it clear that Nian could not be saved, which was why Wu Xing he found it to be a shame. Yes, it is indeed a shame, but Nian has to die. Yang Kai said grimly. As long as Nian was killed, the Black Ink clan's plan to build a warship would come to a halt. Perhaps they would still be able to nurture some artifact refiners in the distant future, but those Black Ink disciples would never grow to be great grandmasters. Now, humans from different great passes had purifying light, and purifying black ink pills had been successfully developed. In other words, no human soldiers would be corrupted by black ink strength again. How was the Black Ink clan supposed to nurture artifact refiners without any new black ink disciples? The moment they broke through their limits with black ink strength, people like Nian and Liu Zi and lost all hope to be saved. It's not easy to kill an 8th order master. Moreover, there are 2 territory lords in this sealed world. What's your plan? Yang Kai replied, I'm certainly no match for a normal 8th order open heaven realm master, however, Nian is different. He won't be able to fully utilize his 8th order might. Furthermore, I don't have to fight with him directly. I just have to get a chance to dispel the black ink strength in his body. By then, his small universe will come apart, and he'll detonate. As for the 2 territory lords, my Cheung has never left the portal over the years, so I don't have a good solution for him. Nevertheless, Qing Lei will leave this sealed world every 6 months. We can make use of that. Upon hearing that, Wu Xing he nodded, Qing Lei only left this sealed world some time ago, so it will be another 6 months before he leaves again. We'll make a move in 6 months, then. Yang Kai was determined, I hope that everything will go well by then, however, before that, I will need you to deal with senior brother Wang and senior brother Guan. Wu Xing he nodded, I'll inform you at an opportune time. As they spoke, The restriction around the building was triggered. A thought flashed through Wu Xinghe's mind as the restriction was deactivated. A moment later, a black ink disciple walked up the stairs and cupped his fist at them. "Senior brother Nai wants to see you, senior brothers." A puzzled Wu Xinghe asked, "What happened?" The black ink disciple shook his head, "I have no idea, but senior brother Nai wants everybody to gather together." Upon finishing his words, he turned around and left. After exchanging glances, Yang Kai and Wu Xinghe frowned. They had no idea why Nyan wanted them to come together not long after he returned. "Let's see what he's up to," Wu Xinghe said, then left the place with the other man. A moment later, several hundred artifact refiners gathered together in front of the warship in the mountain valley. Standing in front of them was the bloated Nyan. Many people were whispering among themselves as they had no idea why Nyan gathered everyone. When all of the artifact refiners were present, Nyan gazed at the huge warship with narrowed eyes and waved his hand, "Dismantle it." Upon hearing that, all of them were astounded. Guan Ning, who was at the front, stepped forward and said, "Senior brother Nai, this warship is about to be completed. Why do you want to dismantle it?" Nyan replied dispassionately, "What's the point of keeping this rubbish? Dismantle it." But just when Guan Ning wanted to continue speaking, Nyan suddenly turned his head and glared at him. "What else do you want to say?" As he spoke, his 8th order open heaven realm pressure swept across the place. Guan Ning gulped and spoke no further. Wu Xinghe, who was standing beside Yang Kai, frowned. Although Nyan was haughty back then, he had never been so overbearing. It seemed that his temperament had changed after he forcefully ascended to the 8th order. Marshall Peak, Chapter 5094, The time has come. The artifact refiners worked together to dismantle the warship, which was yet to be completed. Then, Nyan directly gave the order and divided the hundreds of artifact refiners into a dozen groups. Each group was given specific tasks according to the fields they were proficient in. A massive amount of resources were sent to this place by the Black Ink clan, after which the artifact refiners started building a new warship. While working hard, Yang Kai secretly observed Nyan and realized that the latter was indeed an artifact refining great grandmaster now. He had no idea how skillful Nyan was in artifact refining before his recent ascension, but from the looks of it, the latter was indeed a more accomplished artifact refiner than Wu Xinghe and the others. Perhaps he was still not comparable to Dongguren Ping, who was a great grandmaster in Blue Sky Pass. However, Dongguren Ping had been a great grandmaster for thousands of years. As a new great grandmaster, Nyan was naturally less experienced. However, as time passed, his achievements might be just as great as those of Dongguren Ping. This person was indeed gifted when it came to artifact refining. It was no wonder he could transform into an influential figure from a little-known person. Although he still wasn't skillful enough, he was already capable of refining a functional warship. As Yang Kai observed with concern as the warship in the mountain valley started taking shape after just 3 months. It was not different from the previously dismantled warship when it came to its appearance, but all the artifact refiners in the mountain valley clearly felt that its capabilities were much greater than those of the previous version. Once it was completed, it would be good enough to be deployed on the battlefield. The artifact refiners were elated at the imminent success of the project, so they spent longer hours taking part in the development of the warship, which further accelerated the refinement process. Yang Kai remained as Wu Xinghe's assistant. During this period of time, with Wu Xinghe's cooperation, Yang Kai managed to dispel the black ink strength within Wang Saibo and Guan Ning. Although these 3 grandmasters were doing their best to delay the process of perfecting the warship, they had to be cautious to prevent exposing themselves. Day after day, with the enormous amount of resources pouring in and hundreds of artifact refiners working diligently, the warship was nearing perfection. It was also closer to the deadline Yang Kai had set almost 6 months ago. One day, Yang Kai was helping Wu Xinghe as usual to refine an offensive artifact to be installed on the warship. It had only been 6 months since Nyan returned, but under his leadership, the hundreds of artifact refiners here worked together to perfect the warship. The warship was almost complete, but there were still some defects that had to be rectified. As for the capabilities of this warship, these artifact refiners had their own judgments. However, those could only be verified by deploying the warship on the battlefield. Somewhere near the warship, Nyan was having a chat with Qing Lei, who was responsible for guarding this place. Qing Lei had always acted aloof and arrogant in front of Wu Xinghe and the others, but he was polite to Nyan. He totally regarded him as an equal, which just went to show how important Nyan was to the Black Ink clan. This was to be expected though, as Nyan was an 8th Order master as well as an artifact refining Great Grandmaster. Regardless of whose Black Ink disciple he previously was, he was now working directly under Mu Guang. Naturally, the treatment that the Royal Lord's Black Ink disciple received was different. They didn't seem to have the intention of keeping their conversation secret, so Yang Kai could hear them clearly. Qing Lei asked, "Brother Nai, is this warship usable now?" With his hands behind his back, Nyan replied proudly, "Yes. After a bit of troubleshooting, it can be deployed on the battlefield." Upon hearing that, Qing Lei was ecstatic. "You're indeed incredible." Nyan replied impassively, "This Nai certainly wouldn't disappoint the Royal Lord." Qing Lei went on to ask, "How capable is this thing compared to those owned by the humans?" Nyan said, "It's likely slightly inferior, however, this is a prototype. As we refine more warships, everyone will become familiar with the process. In time, the capabilities of our warships will improve. Soon, we'll be able to make ones that are on par with the ones owned by the humans." With that said, even though this warship is less capable, it's also much larger than the ones owned by the humans, as it's specifically made for the Black Ink clan. With enough people on board, this warship will be able to deal a heavy blow to the enemy. Qing Lei nodded gently. "I'll report what you've said to the Royal Lord. Please tell the Royal Lord that one warship will not be useful on the battlefield. It would be better to make a number of them first so that we can catch the humans off guard." Qing Lei grinned, "With you working for the Royal Lord, it's as great as owning an entire army. Many thanks for your compliment, Brother Qing Lei." Qing Lei decided to end their conversation here. "I'll head to the Royal City now and tell the Royal Lord about this piece of good news. I'm sure the Royal Lord will be pleased. I'll leave affairs here to you." "It's my duty," Nyan nodded lightly. The next instant, Qing Lei shot into the sky and headed towards the portal. As Yang Kai and Wu Xinghe exchanged glances, a glint flashed through their eyes. A moment later, a faint fluctuation of space principles was felt coming from the portal. Apparently, Qing Lei had left this sealed world. Upon that confirmation, Yang Kai nodded at Wu Xinghe and got up before shuffling forward in a different direction. When he passed by Wang Saibo, he secretly said, "The time has come." Wang Saibo halted what he was doing and nodded almost imperceptibly. Then, Yang Kai brushed past Guan Ning and told him the same thing. A moment later, Wu Xinghe suddenly got up and called out, "Senior Brother Nai." Nyan was in a nearby place. Upon hearing that, he turned his head and frowned. "What's wrong?" Wu Xinghe said, "There's a slight problem here. I need you to have a look at it." Despite being bloated, the unsuspecting Nyan appeared in front of him the next instant. "What's the problem?" Wu Xinghe pointed at the offensive artifact he was refining. "There seems to be a problem with this artifact. Should I refine a new one?" Nyan turned to look at the artifact and picked it up before examining it. A moment later, he snapped with a dark expression, "Waste. You've basically ruined this artifact. How do you have the nerve to call yourself an artifact refining Grandmaster?" To the side, Wu Xinghe didn't dare to say anything, but in the next instant he caught a glimpse of Yang Kai appearing behind Nyan like a phantom. Yellow and blue light appeared on his palms as energy fluctuated. The moment he clapped his hands, those lights turned into a pure white light and engulfed Nyan. Seeing that, Wu Xinghe did not hesitate to execute the original plan as he dashed towards the defensive array and infused his power into it. In the meantime, in two different places around the warship, Wang Saibo and Guan Ning acted according to Yang Kai's instructions. The instant they detected the surge of energy, they promptly infused their powers into the defensive arrays. 3 defensive arrays were simultaneously activated by 3 7th Order Open Heaven Realm Masters, and a huge light barrier instantly covered the entire warship. The sudden change happening on the warship instantly caught the attention of the Black Ink clansmen nearby. As they turned their heads to look, however, They realized they were unable to see anything clearly as the warship was engulfed in a solid light barrier which looked like a membrane that prevented anyone from peering through it. This made all the Black Ink clansmen feel shocked and doubtful. Having no idea what was going on with the warship, they began to gather around. None of them could have expected that a plan that was a long time in the making was unfolding right before their eyes. While the Black Ink clansmen were caught off guard, Nyan also hadn't expected that someone would launch a sneak attack on him. The moment Yang Kai engulfed him with the purifying light, Nyan turned around and felt an instinctive disgust towards the white light. He quickly snapped, "You caught death." As his 8th order open heaven realm power burst forth, he threw out his fist. A grunt was heard as someone was sent flying away. However, the white light had already covered Nyan completely. In an instant, he wailed in pain as the black ink strength in his body gushed out of his body, as though it was facing its nemesis. The black ink strength was soon dispersed and purified. Nyan's expression was transformed by fear and horror. The violent aura around him became even more dangerous and the sarcomas on his skin started bulging as black pus spewed out of them. Just moments later, all the black ink strength in his small universe was dispelled by the purifying light, and without its support, he was unable to bear his own 8th order cultivation. He widened his eyes as the veins on his forehead throbbed. While he looked horrible, his already bloated figure started expanding rapidly like a balloon. He shook a little as he extended his hands in an attempt to grab something, but he was unable to do anything in the end. Following a loud boom, he exploded and turned into hashed meat and blood. Just like Yang Kai had said to Wu Xinghe before, he didn't need to directly deal with Nyan in order to kill him. Nyan acquired his 8th order cultivation through the help of black ink strength, hence, without the black ink strength support, his own cultivation would kill him. Yang Kai didn't even need to fight with him. Just by activating purifying light to dispel the black ink strength in his body, he could easily dispatch Nyan. Having said that, Nyan was still an 8th order open heaven realm master. If they really got into a fight, Yang Kai might not be a match for him. The moment the 8th order open heaven realm master detonated, a violent force spread across the warship and caused the people on the deck to fall to the ground. The artifact refiners closest to Nyan had all collapsed while the bow of the warship was destroyed upon impact. Even the light barrier around the warship bulged. As Yang Kai coughed, he struggled out of the wreckage with a flushing face. Nyan's last desperate strike managed to hurt him, but that was inevitable, for they were basically at arm's length from each other at that time. Despite being a master in the Tao of space, Yang Kai couldn't dodge the final strike of an 8th order master before his death. Fortunately, everything was going according to plan. Since Nyan was dead, the Black Ink clan's plan would come to a halt. Other than this new great grandmaster, no one else could help them build warships that would be used against the humans. It could be said that Yang Kai had completed half of his task just by killing Nyan. Even if he was unable to escape now, he would die with no regrets. Marshall Peak, Chapter 5095. Please cut your cultivations, senior brothers. Strictly speaking, Yang Kai's plan was a crude one with many factors that were beyond his control. For example, he wasn't certain whether Qing Lei would leave at the appropriate time. And, how was he going to escape from the sealed world when a territory lord was guarding the portal? Even if he managed to flee from the sealed world, how would he shake off the Black Ink clan's pursuit? He didn't have time to ponder on all these issues though, nor was it useful for him to do so. Since the plan was crude, it meant that there were too many variables he could not account for. The only thing he could do was to launch a sneak attack and kill Nyan. Under Nyan's leadership, the warship was about to be completed, and Qing Lei had left at this point. Regardless of how crude the plan was, it had to be executed immediately. Since Nyan was dead, the Black Ink clan's plan would come to a halt. As for whether Yang Kai could bring the other artifact refiners to flee from this sealed world, and how he would get rid of the Black Ink clan's pursuit after that, he could only leave it up to the heavens. Upon confirming that Nyan was dead, Yang Kai was relieved. Then, he madly absorbed the powers of yellow and blue crystals in his small universe and activated purifying light. There were several hundred artifact refiners on the warship now. Over the past 6 months, under Nyan's leadership, everyone was constantly building the warship, so no one had time to rest. All of them had gathered together, which gave Yang Kai a chance to deal with them all at once. Other than Wu Xinghe and the other two grandmasters, whose black ink strength had been dispelled some time ago, these hundreds of artifact refiners were still black ink disciples. In order to make these black ink disciples work with him, Yang Kai had to restore their true natures first. With Yang Kai as the center, purifying light exploded outwards and soon engulfed the entire warship as well as all the artifact refiners. Sizzling noises were heard coming from everywhere as black ink strength leaked from these artifact refiners before fading into nothingness under the intense white light. Just a moment later, all the artifact refiners regained their senses as humans. The turn of events startled them as they had no idea what was going on. With that said, they still remembered what had happened over the years and instantly felt ashamed and vexed that they had actually built a warship for the Black Ink clan. With no time to waste, Wang Saibo and Guan Ning quickly told them what was going on in loud voices and calmed them down. Following a temporary commotion and puzzlement, these artifact refiners followed the instructions of Wang Saibo and Guan Ning as they took charge of the arrays and infused their powers into them. Outside of the warship, the Black Ink clansmen were perplexed as they had no idea what was going on within the light barrier. They reckoned that something had gone wrong and many of the feudal lords were now shouting. Some of them even started attacking the light barrier in order to find out what was going on inside. Right then, a humming sound was heard as the warship rose into the air. Following that, violent attacks were shot from its weapons. Many of the unprepared Black Ink clansmen suffered injuries or were killed in this initial bombardment. Even some of the feudal lords were badly injured. Although Nyan's return was terrible news to Yang Kai, the warship built under his leadership was of great help now. The capabilities of this warship were not comparable to those of the warships owned by the humans, but it was already good enough to be deployed in battle. Moreover, with hundreds of artifact refiners present, they were able to unleash the warship's full power. After all, they were the ones who built it, so they were the ones most familiar with its capabilities. Nothing was more enjoyable in the world than using the warship they had crafted to deal with the Black Ink clan. These artifact refiners madly channeled their world force to vent out their grievances of becoming the Black Ink clan's lackeys. As the warship roared to life, all the offensive arrays were fully activated. The consumption of energy did not bother the people on the vessel. Faced with this barrage of attacks, the surrounding Black Ink clansmen had no choice but to flee. The Black Ink clansmen would counterattack from time to time, but they wouldn't dare to use all of their powers, and the light barrier around the warship could easily fend off such tepid attacks. Before the Black Ink clansmen were certain what was going on with the warship, they wouldn't dare to destroy it. They had been staying in this sealed world for a long time, so they knew that these artifact refiners were valuable assets as well as talented people that the royal lord had high hopes for. Hence, no one would dare to deal a lethal blow to them. If they accidentally killed some of these precious artifact refiners, they would surely be executed as well. Since they were concerned about accidentally killing the artifact refiners, the warship only became more unstoppable. One of the feudal lords came to his senses soon and shouted, "Inform Sir Mai Cheung about this, now." In fact, Mai Cheung was already gazing in their direction while feeling shocked and doubtful, a solemn expression on his face. The energy fluctuations coming from the warship were violent, and as a territory lord, he had certainly detected them. However, he was tasked with guarding the portal, so he couldn't leave as he pleased. Therefore, despite realizing the anomaly, he didn't immediately go over and look into the matter right away. After all, he had felt energy fluctuations coming from the warship in the past when the artifact refiners were experimenting with its offensive and defensive artifacts. Nevertheless, this time seemed to be different. After hesitating for a bit, Mai Cheung said to one of his subordinates, "Go over there and find out what's going on." Upon receiving the order, the feudal lord quickly left to investigate. At this moment, Yang Kai was moving around the warship. Although the humans managed to gain the upper hand by leveraging the warship's power and making a move first, the Black Ink clansmen would soon react accordingly. Although Qing Lei was not around, it was not easy to deal with Mai Cheung. Once the territory lord arrived, the humans wouldn't be able to fight against him despite having the warship. After all, this vessel was not complete to begin with, and many of the arrays were damaged after Nyan exploded. Yang Kai had to transfer these artifact refiners inside his small universe before My Cheong realized what was going on so that they would stand a better chance of fleeing. Otherwise, with so many people around, they couldn't possibly flee. Other than Wu Xinghe and the two Grandmasters, the rest of the 300 or so artifact refiners were below the 7th order. Therefore, Yang Kai could easily keep them inside his small universe. Wherever he went, the artifact refiners would disappear as they were stuffed into his small universe. Without these artifact refiners powering it, the warship was weakening rapidly. After just 10 breaths of time, only Yang Kai and the 3 Grandmasters were left on the warship. The warship instantly became powerless, which startled the Black Ink clansmen around it. Yang Kai quickly shouted, "Please cut your cultivations, senior brothers." Wu Xinghe and the others were in the 7th Order Open Heaven Realm, which was the same order as Yang Kai. Usually, Yang Kai wouldn't be able to keep them inside his small universe. However, if they were willing to give up a part of their small universes and force their order to regress, there wouldn't be a problem. This was part of Yang Kai's plan, so Wu Xinghe and the others were aware of it. Therefore, at this moment, they did not hesitate to sacrifice parts of their small universes. In order to save time, they ferociously sliced off large chunks of their small universe to quickly weaken themselves. Just moments later, their orders all fell from the 7th Order to the 6th Order. Their faces were pale, and the soul-wrenching pain caused them to tremble uncontrollably. Yang Kai had gone through the pain of sacrificing a part of his small universe before, so he understood how they felt. However, their orders regressing was a small price to pay to escape with their lives. After all, when they returned to the human side safely, they could consume profound yin spirit fruits to repair their small universes. If they lost their lives, nothing else would matter. Soon, Wu Xinghe and the others were also put inside Yang Kai's small universe. Any other 7th Order Open Heaven Realm Master wouldn't be able to keep these 300 Open Heaven Realm Masters in their small universes. After all, there was a limit to the capacity of a 7th Order Master's small universe. By keeping too many Open Heaven Realm Masters, they would find it hard to utilize their world force, and their strength would plunge. Nevertheless, Yang Kai wasn't affected one bit. He wasn't certain if it was because his heritage was ample or for some other reason. With that said, this was undoubtedly good news to him. However, without Wu Xinghe and the other Grandmasters taking charge, the light barrier around the warship instantly disappeared. It wasn't until this moment that the Black Ink clansmen saw what was going on. The sight before their eyes astounded them. Presently, the several hundred artifact refiners had gone missing from the warship, leaving only one person behind. Besides that, the warship seemed to have been impacted by a violent explosion and many places were evidently damaged. What happened? All the Black Ink clansmen were perplexed. Standing on the deck, Yang Kai ignored the clamor coming from the Black Ink clansmen and instead stared intently at the portal. He could sense that My Cheong's aura was approaching quickly, obviously having detected the abnormal situation over here. After letting out a breath, Yang Kai channeled as much strength as he could into the defensive array beneath his feet. The next moment, the light barrier reappeared around the warship. However, this time, it could only serve as a shield and could no longer prevent others from looking through it. Following that, he turned the warship in a different direction and drove it towards the portal. From afar, he could see a dark light approaching the vessel. It was none other than My Cheong, who was responsible for guarding the portal, followed by a large number of feudal lords. At this moment, My Cheong was both shocked and furious. Although he had already detected the anomaly taking place in the mountain valley earlier, he didn't immediately come over to have a look considering that the humans had been experimenting with the powers of the artifacts recently. Therefore, he only told a subordinate to look into the matter. However, he was astonished by the news he received. For some reason, the warship started attacking the Black Ink clansmen in the mountain valley and caused a lot of casualties. This was simply intolerable. Were the human artifact refiners out of their minds? How did they have the guts to make a move on the Black Ink clan? What prompted them to do so? Before Ching Lei left, he told My Cheong that the warship was almost complete, so he had to head to the royal city and share this good news with the royal lord. Nevertheless, such an incident happened not long after he left. As the only territory lord in this place now, How was my Cheung supposed to take responsibility? If the royal lord blamed this debacle on him, he would be severely punished despite being a territory lord. Like a rumbling volcano, the fury in my Cheung's chest was about to erupt. From afar, he saw that the warship built by the human artifact refiners was coming at him at full speed, and standing on the deck was one person whose expression was cold and indifferent. He was the artifact refiner sent to this place by He Yuan. Why is he the only one here? Where are the others? Marshall Peak, Chapter 5096, Great Escape. Seeing that the warship was coming at him at full speed without showing signs of decelerating, my Cheung barked, "Stop." Yang Kai, who was standing on the deck, curved his lips into a smile. Instead of stopping, he infused even more energy into the warship's arrays, which caused the warship to accelerate further. Something is wrong with him. He's not a black ink disciple. An idea flashed through my Cheung's mind. If he was really a black ink disciple, regardless of who his master was, he wouldn't dare to be impudent in front of a territory lord. However, instead of obeying my Cheung's order, this person became even more brazen. My Cheung didn't have time to ponder on this issue though, as the warship was about to hit him. Roaring, he surged his rich black ink strength, which turned into a huge black ink cloud and engulfed the warship. At the same time, he pushed out his palms. The giant warship hummed as every part of it creaked upon impact. My Cheung was forced to move backwards, but he soon stabilized himself after more than 10 steps. He successfully stopped the warship. Given his power as a territory lord, such a warship with only a single person in charge couldn't cause any damage to him. If he wanted, he could have destroyed this warship. However, this was the treasure that the royal lord had high hopes of. They had spent countless amounts of time, resources, and manpower to build it. This ship was the key to securing the Black Ink clan's future. That was why he wouldn't dare to destroy it. Left with no other choice, he could only stop the warship in such a way. By stopping the vessel so easily, it went to show how powerful he truly was. Separated by only a light barrier, Yang Kai and my Cheung stared at one another. One of them was unfazed while the other was infuriated. My Cheung said through clenched teeth, "Bastard, you're dead." Yang Kai grinned at him as he madly channeled his power into the warship like a torrent. The next instant, a dangerous aura could be felt coming from every part of the warship. With widened eyes, my Cheung roared, "You dare?" As he spoke, he extended his hand towards Yang Kai. The thin light barrier around the warship couldn't possibly fend off the powerful attack from a territory lord and lasted for only one breath before it shattered. As he was about to capture Yang Kai though, a dazzling light suddenly exploded from the warship. A horrifying force spread out as the entire warship was engulfed in a ball of raging flames. My Cheung missed his target and failed in his attempt to capture the insolent human. At the most critical moment, the human seemed to have vanished into thin air. On the other hand, the warship's explosion caused his arm to be injured and he was also forced to move backwards upon impact. The warship was destroyed. My Cheung stared at the burning warship. Despite the heat, he felt as though a basin of cold water had been poured onto his heart. He could almost envision how infuriated the royal lord would be upon learning what had happened. He probably would have to bear all the responsibility. Despite being a territory lord, he wouldn't be able to bear what was to come. Up until this moment, he still had no idea what was going on. How did things go so wrong all of a sudden? After all, not long ago, Qing Lei told him that the warship was almost completed, so he had to head to the royal city and inform the royal lord about it. My Cheung thought that he would not have to stay here much longer. In the future, he could stand on a warship and look down condescendingly at his enemies on the battlefield. Barely 2 hours later, his dream burst like a bubble. It was expected that he was enraged. That human. As long as he could capture that human, he would find out the truth. He suddenly turned his head and gazed at the portal before yelling, "Cordon off the portal. Make sure no one can leave this place." Although the human disappeared as the warship exploded, my Cheung didn't think he was dead. The human must have pulled a trick and avoided his detection by using the explosion to cover his tracks. In that case, the human's target would undoubtedly be the portal, for he had to leave this sealed world as quickly as possible. Upon giving the order, Mai Cheung turned around to return to the portal. As soon as he started moving though, he heard the sound of battle coming from the portal. Following that, the portal in mid-air opened rapidly. The human that had escaped from Mai Cheung had really headed to the portal. The instant the portal was opened, he dashed past it and disappeared. After that, the portal closed abruptly and vanished. A furious Mai Cheung turned into a dark streak of light and reached the portal in just a few breaths' time. Lifting his gaze, he realized that 7 or 8 feudal lords had collapsed, all badly injured. The most severely wounded one had a large hole in his figure as his body was penetrated by some kind of weapon earlier. Black blood was splattered all over the place. That human is so strong. Mai Cheung was startled. As far as he knew, the Black Ink disciple sent to this place by He Yuan was just a 7th Order Open Heaven Realm Master. Usually, a 7th Order Open Heaven Realm Master was more powerful than a feudal lord, but even if one feudal lord was no match for him, how was it possible that so many feudal lords were defeated at the same time? Moreover, only a few breaths of time had passed since the human escaped from Mai Cheung. How did he disable 7 or 8 feudal lords in such a short time? Mai Cheung didn't have time to ponder on this issue. While gritting his teeth, he ordered, "Open the portal." Since the human had fled, he naturally had to chase after him. Only by capturing the human could he make up for his mistake and find out what had happened. It wasn't necessary for Mai Cheung to give the order. In fact, after Yang Kai fled, a feudal lord, who was usually responsible for opening the portal, had been trying his best to do just that. However, the portal that could be opened with ease normally showed no reaction on this day. After several attempts, he still got the same outcome. The feudal lord's forehead was covered with sweat, possibly because of pain, anxiety, or both. Still, he turned to look at Mai Cheung and reported, "Sir, I can't open it." Waste. Mai Cheung directly kicked the feudal lord away and snatched the token. He then infused his power into the token and waved it at the portal. As usual, a dark light shot into the void, but no reaction was seen. The portal, which should have been opened by now, was nowhere in sight. Mai Cheung widened his eyes and made one more attempt, but the outcome was the same. A feudal lord came over and said in a hushed voice, "Sir, the portal's restriction was set up by the Black Ink disciples. They must have tampered with it somehow." Certainly, Mai Cheung realized this as well, otherwise, he couldn't explain what was going on. He directly exerted more force with his hand and turned the token into dust before demanding, "Break it open." As he spoke, he made a move first by launching an attack on the portal. Seeing that, the feudal lords followed suit. In the void, Yang Kai manipulated space principles and repeatedly used instantaneous movement. He was trying to get as far away from the royal city as possible. Previously, when he was led to the royal city to purchase materials, he left behind a trick in the sealed world's portal. Given his mastery in the Tao of space, no one else could possibly notice it. Now that he had to flee from this sealed world, he activated the trick. However, he knew that this little measure couldn't hold Mai Cheung up for long. Mai Cheung just had to forcefully break through the portal, which would take no more than a cup of tea's time. After that, a large number of Black Ink clansmen would relentlessly pursue him. Therefore, he only had a cup of tea's time to flee. Given such a short time, regardless of how proficient he was at the Tao of space, Yang Kai couldn't possibly escape from the Black Ink clan, therefore, he could only get as far away from the royal city as possible. Given his strength, he might be able to escape from a territory lord, however, if the royal lord made a move, there was nothing else he could do but to wait for death. Nyan was dead, and the only completed warship was destroyed. It could be said that the Black Ink clan's plan was as good as dead. Everything would be perfect if Yang Kai could bring the remaining 300 artifact refiners in his small universe back to the human side. Nevertheless, the road ahead of him was paved with danger. He wasn't certain if he could get away. Presently, he could only do his best to run for his life. If he succeeded, everything would be fine. If he failed, he had more than 300 friends to accompany him on the road to the Yellow Springs, so he wouldn't feel lonely. As he fully activated space principles, his figure flickered like a phantom. Fortunately, Yang Kai didn't run into any real danger while navigating through the void. Even though he would sometimes come across some black ink clansmen who were heading to the royal city, he would disappear from their sight the next instant. Many of the black ink clansmen even thought that they saw an illusion. Suddenly, there came a moment when Yang Kai felt all his hair standing on end. There seemed to be a pair of eyes that were opening and staring at him from a faraway place behind him. Mu Guang, Royal Lord. After making some calculations, Yang Kai realized that Mai Cheong should have broken through the portal and informed the Royal Lord about what had happened in the sealed world by now. Even from such a great distance, the Royal Lord could still accurately locate him, astonishing Yang Kai. One had to know that he had never stopped using instantaneous movement since he left the sealed world, and presently, he was very far away from the royal city. The royal lords were really astounding, and their powers were beyond Yang Kai's imagination. He wasn't certain whether Mu Guang could really find his exact whereabouts, but he wouldn't dare to stop fleeing. However, after he was targeted by that gaze, he felt that something had been wrapped around his figure, which made him feel a constant sense of discomfort and left him slightly muddle-headed. It was obviously because of the royal lord's aura that had locked onto him. Martial Peak, Chapter 5097, Mu Guang, Royal Lord. Yang Kai wasn't surprised at the fact that this Black Ink clan army could quickly find out what was going on and even intercept him here. In fact, he had already expected it. Compared to the humans, the transmission of information between the Black Ink clansmen was far quicker. In Jagu's territory, Yang Kai learned about some of the Black Ink nest's secrets. With the Black Ink nests of different sizes as the foundation, a colossal information network could be built. Through the information network, everything that happened in the Black Ink clan's territory could spread around quickly. Since Mu Guang had found out about what had happened in the sealed world, the royal lord could make use of the Black Ink nests and spread the word across the entire Yin-Yang theater, allowing the Black Ink clan to promptly respond. Certainly, given Yang Kai's current strength, he wouldn't have any regard for a mere feudal lord's force. If he wanted, he could easily kill these mixed soldiers with only a few feudal lords in charge. However, he didn't have the intention of fighting with them. Mu Guang's aura had locked onto him from afar, so he wouldn't dare to waste any time or energy. If possible, he wouldn't want to battle against any Black Ink clansman so that he would have a better chance of fleeing. Hence, before the private force could even approach him, he manipulated space principles and disappeared. Several hundred Black Ink clansmen were left dumbfounded. However, this was just the beginning. In the following half a day, Yang Kai would come across a number of private forces trying to block his path. Nevertheless, he was determined not to deal with those Black Ink clansmen, and since he was bent on fleeing, those Black Ink clansmen couldn't do anything to him either. They couldn't capture him unless they could cordon off a stretch of space and seal it. Unfortunately for them, the void was expansive, so even if they knew where he was heading, they couldn't set up a trap in advance. It was a thrilling escape. In fact, Yang Kai was familiar with this kind of escape as, throughout the years, he had been in this exact situation a number of times. He managed to get away every time with the help of his mastery of space principles. He couldn't remember when the last time such an incident took place, but every time he ran into this kind of situation, he was facing an opponent he couldn't hope to defeat. As time passed, all the Black Ink clansmen in Mu Guang's territory seemed to have been mobilized. After experiencing several setbacks, the Black Ink clansmen began using a different tactic. Instead of gathering together, they separated into small teams and scattered around the void as they awaited Yang Kai's appearance. That way, regardless of how reluctant Yang Kai was, he inevitably had to fight at least some of the Black Ink clansmen he happened to bump into. After all, when manipulating space principles, he couldn't be certain whether there would be a Black Ink clansman waiting for him in his next location. Fortunately, he never came across a lot of Black Ink clansmen, and most of his enemies were weak, so it took him little effort to kill them all. This kind of delay wouldn't ordinarily pose a problem, but it was lethal at this moment as he was being pursued by a royal lord. As time passed, he could feel that Mu Guang was getting closer. Although he had no idea about Mu Guang's exact location, Yang Kai realized that the aura that had locked onto him became heavier. He felt a kind of pressure, as though he was held down by something, making it more difficult to manipulate space principles. The entire void felt viscous to him. Despite his calm expression, Yang Kai felt helpless in his heart. As expected, he was unable to escape from a being like a royal lord. The huge gap between their powers couldn't be made up for with space principles alone. While fleeing, he turned his hand around as an ancient coin appeared in his palm. This coin was given to him by the little girl who wandered around the marketplace in Yinyang Pass all the time. According to her, she acquired this thing from the old ancestor and it might save his life if he cast it out at the critical moment. Certainly, Yang Kai wouldn't expect the little girl, who knew nothing but how to eat all the time, to help him in any way. However, this thing came from the old ancestor of Yinyang Pass, so it must have some special power. As the old ancestor, she must be fully aware of everything that was going on in Yinyang Pass. Yang Kai didn't think a little girl, who had never cultivated before, could steal anything from the old ancestor. In other words, the old ancestor must be aware that the little girl had given this ancient coin to him. Perhaps she had even instructed the little girl to do so. Why would the old ancestor give him this ancient coin, though? After giving it a thought, Yang Kai reckoned this coin was some kind of life-saving tool. After all, he was asked to come to this place by those from Yinyang Pass. Moreover, he could be considered a half-disciple of Yinyang Cave Heaven, so it was expected that the old ancestor in Yinyang Pass would give him something to protect himself. Otherwise, it wouldn't explain why the old ancestor had never shown up even though he had been staying in Yinyang Pass for quite some time. The fact that the Black Ink clan were building a warship was a critical matter, so it was impossible that the old ancestor wasn't concerned about it. The reason she never showed up was that she must have made a special arrangement. This ancient coin could very well be the old ancestor's arrangement. Yang Kai had inspected this ancient coin before, but couldn't find out the secrets inside it. Given the situation he was in, he could only pin his hope on this ancient coin. He secretly prayed that this thing had better be useful, otherwise, he and 300 artifact refiners would perish today. The aura behind him was getting closer and Yang Kai could feel the grand will that was unique to royal lords. It wasn't the first time he sensed this kind of will. He had the same experience in the Black Prison and outside of Blue Sky Pass. However, those experiences were not as profound as what he was going through at this moment. After all, the royal lord in the Black Prison had been sealed off since ancient times, so she was already weak and frail. On the other hand, the one outside of Blue Sky Pass was badly injured and not really paying much attention to him. However, Mu Guang, who was behind him, was at full strength and was completely focused on him, which was different from the two royal lords he had encountered before. The pressure coming from this will alone had almost devastated him. Yang Kai felt as if he was carrying a huge mountain on his back, which made it extremely difficult for him to take even a step forward, and he could no longer manipulate space principles with ease. After fleeing with difficulty for a bit, he suddenly froze on the spot and became immovable. First of all, he had consumed too much energy by madly manipulating space principles for a prolonged time. Secondly, a pressure had engulfed the entire void and cordoned off the space around him. He didn't even have the strength to turn around. In the void, a figure slowly stepped out of the darkness. Lifting his gaze, Yang Kai saw that there was an elegant-looking, curvy woman standing in the void in front of him. The woman was in an imperial dress, which was a form of clothing commonly worn by humans. The imperial dress perfectly outlined her hourglass figure. Yang Kai almost thought that he was having a hallucination. Upon closer look though, he realized that the person indeed looked perfectly human. However, her grand will, indescribably authoritative demeanor, and overwhelming black ink strength, suggested that she wasn't just any Black Ink clansman. She was the royal lord, Mu Guang. Yang Kai had heard of the royal lord's name on several occasions from the mouths of the humans in Yinyang Pass as well as the Black Ink clansmen. However, it wasn't until this moment that he realized this was what Mu Guang looked like. It was the first time he came across a Black Ink clansman that looked entirely human. Most of the Black Ink clansmen were burly, and came in various different forms. Yang Kai had been living in the Black Ink clan's territory for quite a long time, and he had seen all sorts of Black Ink clansmen, but he had never seen someone like her before. This was an eye-opener. If Mu Guang never revealed her Black Ink strength, no one would have thought that she was a Black Ink clansman. Although the woman was stepping forward in a leisurely manner, Her expression was as cold as a frigid winter's day and she spoke dispassionately, "Despite being weak, you're pretty audacious." Apparently, she had heard from Mai Cheong about what happened in the sealed world. She knew that not only had all the artifact refiners gone missing at the same time, but the warship that was almost completed had also been destroyed. It could be said that her centuries-long plan, which could potentially change the status quo and secure the Black Ink clan's ultimate victory, was ruined right before it succeeded. It was expected that she wasn't pleased with what had happened. Yang Kai's figure was stiff as he remained silent. It wasn't that he didn't want to retort, but rather that he didn't even have the strength to speak in front of Mu Guang. Mu Guang stopped in a place that was just 100 meters away from Yang Kai and asked grimly, "Where is Nian?" To her, Nian was key to the success of her plan. They could build a new warship and nurture a new batch of artifact refiners, but there was only one Nian. Without this great grandmaster, they would never be able to construct a functional warship. It had to be noted that the Black Ink clansmen had been waiting for countless years before they finally had a great grandmaster like Nian. That was the result they had achieved with the Royal Lord's full support. Otherwise, Nian couldn't have safely ascended to the Eighth Order on his own, let alone become a great grandmaster. As she spoke, Mu Guang slightly retracted her pressure. Yang Kai was finally able to speak. Still, his voice was hoarse, as though he hadn't drunk anything for several days. "Nian is dead." "Impudence!" Mu Guang roared. Impacted by the invisible pressure, Yang Kai sprayed out a mouthful of blood, and he instantly looked dispirited. Her eyes were burning with fury as she glowered at Yang Kai. "I'll give you one more chance. Tell me where Nian is, and I'll spare your life." Yang Kai guffawed. Nian's natural limit was only the Sixth Order, so he couldn't bear his Eighth Order open heaven realm cultivation. "Why would I lie to you about him being dead? Moreover, he exploded right in front of me. What? Are you going to kill me to avenge his death?" Mu Guang was enraged, but she soon thought of something and calmed herself down. She sneered, "You want to die? It won't be so easy. I heard that you're pretty talented in artifact refining. With proper training, you might be the next Nian." After she finished speaking, her eyes filled with an endless darkness all of a sudden. Yang Kai felt a force trying to break into his small universe, but it soon dissipated. Upon coming to his senses, he exclaimed, "Royal Lord secret technique." When he was in the Black Prison back then, some of the Eighth Order Open Heaven Realm Masters who fought alongside him were struck by the Royal Lord's secret technique and instantly became Black Ink disciples. Yang Kai still vividly recalled the incident, and coupled with his own experience, he came to realize what the woman before his eyes had done just now. The old man, who looked surreal as he was engulfed in a white halo, was the old ancestor from Blue Sky Pass. Yang Kai wouldn't be mistaken, for he had met the old ancestor once when he was in Blue Sky Pass. Why is old ancestor here? Yang Kai was puzzled. But soon, he realized that it wasn't the old ancestor's true form. It was more like a projection or an avatar. That was because the figure that was engulfed in the white light didn't look like it had a physical body. In an instant, Yang Kai figured out everything. Previously, he was asked to see the Blue Sky old ancestor. Just when he was ready to leave after the meeting ended, the old ancestor told him that both the dead and the living were contributors to the human race. After that, he poked a finger on Yang Kai's forehead and told him to leave. Yang Kai had no idea why the old ancestor did that. He had even inspected himself but did not find anything of note. He reckoned that the old ancestor must have given him something to help save himself. After all, he possessed the purifying light, which was important to the human race. Therefore, it was expected that the old ancestor would treat him differently. The technique was hidden most of the time, but it would be triggered when Yang Kai's life was at stake. However, when he and Bai Yi snuck into Zhu Feng's hideout and fought with the latter, Yang Kai almost lost his life on several occasions. At the most critical moment, he even spat out his own dragon bead and engaged in a life-and-death clash with Zhu Feng. Yang Kai eventually managed to kill Zhu Feng. He was in a perilous situation at that time, but the old ancestor's technique didn't activate. Hence, Yang Kai thought that his speculation was wrong. The old ancestor's technique was probably not a way to save his life. Instead, it might have other uses. It just wasn't triggered because the right time hadn't come yet. As time passed, Yang Kai almost forgot about that incident, but just when he was in danger this time, the technique was triggered and the old ancestor's avatar appeared. Yang Kai was elated. It seemed that his speculation was right. The old ancestor had really given him a life-saving charm, but that technique would only be triggered when he was facing a royal lord and not on lesser occasions. After a moment of thought, Yang Kai figured out everything. As the old ancestor's avatar was facing off against Mu Guang, Yang Kai heard him say, "I can only delay her temporarily. Run." The next instant, the old ancestor's avatar clashed with Mu Guang and blocked her violent attack. As their ferocious powers clashed, a ring of light expanded. Space trembled, and the entire universe seemed to be cracking apart. Struck by the fallout, Yang Kai was sent tumbling away. With determination written all over his face, he forcefully cast out the ancient coin in his hand. Usually, the ancient coin looked just like any other coin, but at that moment, it spun rapidly and enlarged. Despite being a 7th-order open heaven realm master as well as a grand dragon, Yang Kai was still dumbstruck after the two powerful masters clashed. However, the ancient coin wasn't affected one bit. In the blink of an eye, the ancient coin expanded to the size of a house. There was a square hole in the middle of the ancient coin, and at this moment, violent space principle fluctuations could be felt coming from it, causing the local space to ripple and warp. A slender figure stepped out from the hole in the coin in the next instant. She looked like she was a young woman in her early 20s. With a smile on her face, she called out to Yang Kai and asked, "Are you all right?" A dumbfounded Yang Kai gazed at her and replied, "You." Although he hoped that the ancient coin could save him, he hadn't expected to see such a sight. He initially thought that the ancient coin was a powerful artifact that could be used to injure the royal lord, but it turned out that the ancient coin was actually a kind of artifact that could be used to build a void corridor that led to somewhere. This woman apparently stepped out of the other end of the void corridor. For some reason, Yang Kai found this young woman familiar, as though he had seen her before. Nevertheless, he was certain he had never come across her in his life. That was because the aura exuding from this woman suggested that she was an old ancestor. The woman waved her hand in front of Yang Kai's and with a frown, she asked worriedly, "Did you injure your head or something?" An anxious Yang Kai quickly cupped his fist. Junior Yang Kai greets old ancestor. He had certainly figured out the woman's identity by now. She was none other than the old ancestor of Yin-Yang Pass. He was somewhat surprised at the fact that the old ancestor of Yin-Yang Pass was a woman, and such a young and beautiful one at that. However, the age of an old ancestor would naturally not show on her face. Despite looking like she was in her early 20s, she must be an old monster that had lived for at least 10,000 years. The woman laughed happily, "You don't have to be overly polite with me." Then, she turned her head and said, "Didn't I tell you to use that ancient coin when you were in mortal danger? Fortunately, that old man left a secret technique in your body. Otherwise, you wouldn't have even had a chance to use the ancient coin." A sheepish Yang Kai lowered his head, but he was secretly cursing in his heart. He couldn't help thinking that the old ancestor of Yin-Yang Pass was somewhat unreliable. Since the ancient coin was so important, she should have explained its uses clearly to him. Instead, she actually had a little girl pass it to him, which made him think that those from Yin-Yang Pass never provided any help for him. He even thought that if he couldn't turn things around, he would perish today along with 300 artifact refiners. As they spoke, the fight between the old ancestor's avatar from Blue Sky Pass and Mu Guang was already in its final stage. After all, it was just an avatar. Although it had the power of an old ancestor, it couldn't last for long. As the violent forces dissipated, the two figures separated. Mu Guang stared fixedly at the woman and said through clenched teeth, "It's you, little bitch." The woman refuted, "Mind your language, old hag, or I'll skin you alive." She then gazed at the old ancestor's avatar from Blue Sky Pass. Presently, the avatar was dim and flickering, as though it would disappear at any moment. Noticing the woman's gaze, the avatar turned his head and nodded gently, "I'll leave the rest to you." With a solemn expression, the woman replied, "Rest in peace, old man. I'll certainly avenge you." Yang Kai's brow twitched as he found the whole conversation awkward. The old ancestor's avatar was indeed going to disappear, but it wasn't like he was really dying. With that said, even though it was just an avatar, its destruction would undoubtedly cause a serious loss to the old ancestor. If not for the fact that Yang Kai had made a huge contribution to the human race and was of incredible importance, the old ancestor wouldn't have left an avatar with him. The avatar took a glance at Yang Kai, then turned into countless motes of light and dissipated. "I'll hold her here." The yin-yang pass old ancestor suddenly yelled. Yang Kai turned his head and saw that she had deliberately folded her arms, as though she was gripping something. With her left hand remaining still, she extended her right hand, like she was drawing out an invisible sword. As she did that, she really unsheathed a sharp-looking sword. Mu Guang's expression turned solemn as the black ink strength around her surged. "Young boy, head in the direction of Yin-Yang Pass. The army has sortied from the inner sanctum. Join up with them," the old ancestor ordered as she raised her sword. "Yes," Yang Kai replied and turned around to leave. Mu Guang couldn't help looking in that direction. "What are you looking at, old hag?" the woman yelled. Only half of her sword was unsheathed at this point, but the next instant, she forcefully drew it and disappeared from the spot. When she reappeared, she was right above Mu Guang as she slashed down with her weapon. Mu Guang roared and lifted both of her hands, blocking the attack with her rich black ink strength. Martial Peak, Chapter 5099, Seeing Gui Liao Again. Yang Kai couldn't possibly intervene in the battle between the old ancestor and the royal lord. What's more, both of them had been fighting against each other for many years. Be it the old ancestor from Yin-Yang Pass or Mu Guang royal lord, the two of them knew practically everything about their opponent, so the outcome of the battle was basically predetermined. It would either come to a draw or be a mutual loss. There wasn't a third possibility. Mu Guang had the advantage in that this was her territory, but it wouldn't be realistic for her to think that she could make the old ancestor of Yin-Yang Pass stay behind. If the old ancestor was bent on fleeing, the royal lord wouldn't have a way to stop her. It was just like what happened outside of Blue Sky Pass back then. When the badly injured royal lord wanted to flee, the old ancestor from Blue Sky Pass was unable to stop him. The repercussions of the battle spread across the void, and even though Yang Kai had immediately manipulated space principles to escape the battlefield, he could still feel the violent impacts behind him. A sense of longing overwhelmed him as he wondered when he would be able to make it to the Ninth Order Open Heaven realm. With that said, he knew that he was far from that goal. After all, he only directly ascended to the Fifth Order Open Heaven realm back then. Although he had consumed a mid-rank world fruit and made it to the Sixth Order, his limit would be the Eighth Order. In order to ascend to the Ninth Order, he would have to find the innate open heaven pills formed in the universe furnace. That wouldn't be easy, for the universe furnace was elusive and mysterious. No one knew when it would appear. Casting his wild thoughts away, Yang Kai dashed toward Yin-Yang Pass. The old ancestor said that the army had deployed. If he wanted to survive, he had to join up with them and fight against the Black Ink clan alongside them. However, the road ahead would surely be paved with danger, so Yang Kai wasn't sure if he would successfully join the Yin-Yang Pass army. Fortunately, the old ancestor was there to deal with Mu Guang. Without the royal lord pursuing him, he stood a greater chance of fleeing. He fished out some spirit pills from his small universe and stuffed them into his mouth. As he moved forward, he tried to restore his strength. As he repeatedly manipulated space principles, his figure kept flickering across the void. Whenever he bumped into Black Ink clansmen, he wouldn't deal with them. Only when he was left with no choice would he fight. By doing so, he moved across billions of kilometers in one day. Presently, he was soaked in blood. The blood was his own as well as the Black Ink clan's. After escaping for such a long time, he was quite battered, but he was still far from Yin-Yang Pass. After all, his starting point was basically the royal city. Even though he had the help of space principles, it would still take him a long time to return to Yin-Yang Pass. Despite being exhausted, Yang Kai didn't dare to stop and rest. Wherever he went, there would be Black Ink clansmen waiting for him. With the help of the Black Ink nests, The Black Ink clan was able to relay information rapidly. Whatever happened in any given place, the news would be soon spread to all the Black Ink nests in the region. Fortunately, he didn't come across any territory lords while escaping, which gave him some room for maneuver. If he really bumped into a territory lord, he wouldn't be able to shake them off given the state he was in. After giving it a thought, Yang Kai realized that this wasn't so surprising. Just like 8th Order Open Heaven Realm Masters, territory lords were rare. Furthermore, the army had left Yin-Yang Pass, so the territory lords had to deal with the enemy. They wouldn't have time to hunt him down. Half a day later, Yang Kai flickered and appeared somewhere in the void. However, before he could stabilize himself to scan the surroundings, he felt a gust of wind coming at him as several auras locked onto him. A shocked Yang Kai knew that he was unlucky as he happened to bump into Black Ink clansmen who were lying in wait for him here. Nevertheless, he had encountered similar incidents during his escape, so he wasn't flustered. He easily dodged the initial attacks and took some distance from his opponent. Lifting his gaze, Yang Kai realized there were indeed a lot of Black Ink clansmen who had surrounded him. Many of them looked pleasantly surprised or perplexed. Apparently, his sudden appearance startled them. Yang Kai silently cursed and thought that he had run out of luck as he was surrounded by so many enemies. He reckoned that he had to fight his way out of here. I knew there was something wrong with you from the start, and now it seems I was right. A stern voice, which sounded familiar to Yang Kai, was heard speaking from the side. Yang Kai turned his head and saw a Black Ink disciple with a hunched back who was glowering at him. This person was the one who launched a sneak attack on him just now. Liu Ziyan. Yang Kai arched his brow with surprise. He had never expected to bump into Liu Ziyan here. Initially, he thought that after leaving He Yuan's territory, he would never see Liu Ziyan again. Who would have thought they would see each other again? After scanning his surroundings, Yang Kai couldn't help but stare at the feudal lord who was apparently in charge. As expected, wherever Liu Ziyan was, Gui Liao would also be there. After all, Liu Ziyan was Gui Liao's Black Ink disciple. Of the other Black Ink clansmen, Yang Kai also found another feudal lord he was familiar with. It seemed that he had seen him before. These were obviously the Black Ink clansmen who were He Yuan's subordinates. Yang Kai soon figured out what was going on. While he was fleeing in Yin-Yang Pass direction, he unknowingly returned to He Yuan's territory. He Yuan wasn't around as Yang Kai couldn't detect his aura, which made him feel relieved. Surrender now. You can't escape. Liu Ziyan barked. Ignoring him, Yang Kai extended his hand and summoned his azure dragon spear. Liu Ziyan snapped, since you refuse a toast, you must drink a loss. As he spoke, he summoned a saber and surged his strength. A glint flashed across the blade as he took a step forward and wielded the weapon at Yang Kai. Gui Liao, who was not far away from them, ordered, "Don't kill him. We have to capture him alive." Upon finishing his words, he circulated his Black Ink strength and charged towards Yang Kai. At the same time, the Black Ink clansmen around Yang Kai dashed towards him. Liu Ziyan grinned, "Don't worry, master. He's strong, so I might not be a match for him." As soon as he brought his weapon down, he cut Yang Kai in half. However, he didn't feel ecstatic for killing his opponent. Instead, his expression changed drastically. That was because he didn't feel he had hacked into blood and flesh. It was apparently an afterimage. He promptly whirled around and brandished his saber. Although he seemed to have hit something, a horrifying impulse was felt coming at him through the blade, one that forced him to step backwards. Before he could stabilize himself, the tip of a spear rapidly magnified before his eyes as he was engulfed in a great sense of danger. A flabbergasted Liu Ziyan madly pushed his strength in an attempt to dodge, but the spear seemed to have affected the space around him, which made it impossible for him to evade the attack. "Master, save!" Liu Ziyan exclaimed in horror, but before he could finish his words, the azure dragon spear pierced right into his eye. The violent force from the spear exploded and turned his head into mist. Liu Ziyan was fully aware of his inferiority. He had fought with Yang Kai back then when the latter's small universe was damaged, and he was defeated in the end. Certainly, he wouldn't be a match for Yang Kai now as the latter's small universe had healed, and his power had increased. Therefore, he knew that he couldn't defeat Yang Kai, nor did he hope that he would deal a heavy blow to him. However, they were in a one-on-one fight back then, but he had many Black Ink clansmen with him now. Liu Ziyan thought that regardless of how powerful Yang Kai was, there had to be a limit. After all, Yang Kai was just a 7th Order Open Heaven Realm Master, so he couldn't possibly defeat so many Black Ink clansmen on his own. Nevertheless, it never crossed Liu Ziyan's mind that he would lose his life after just 2 exchanges. His demise astounded the Black Ink clansmen around him. They couldn't even clearly see what was going on when the 7th Order Black Ink disciple was killed by the enemy. They had a feeling that Liu Ziyan hadn't stood a chance to even resist in front of Yang Kai. It wasn't until this moment that Gui Liao reached Yang Kai and tried to attack him. Liu Ziyan's death shocked him as well, so he was affected despite being determined to capture the opponent. This led to him uncontrollably retracting half of his force to defend himself. When he summoned Jia Jiyu back then, the latter told him about what happened before Yang Kai was eventually captured by He Yuan. Jia Gu's descriptions of Yang Kai's capabilities were vivid, but Gui Liao had a feeling that he was exaggerating. It wasn't like he had never dealt with 7th Order humans before, and they were nothing special in his opinion. Although Yang Kai was indeed unusually powerful, he couldn't possibly be as invincible as Jia Jiyu described him to be. Gui Liao figured Jia Jiyu must have suffered a loss at Yang Kai's hands, who was then personally corrupted by the Territory Lord and became his Black Ink disciple. That was the reason Jia Jiyu overstated Yang Kai's strength. Upon seeing that Yang Kai easily killed Liu Ziyan though, Gui Liao realized that perhaps Jia Jiyu wasn't exaggerating. Yang Kai was just as powerful as Jia Gu's descriptions of him. It was no wonder that the Territory Lord decided to personally corrupt him. He was indeed significantly stronger than other 7th Order humans. It was expected that He Yuan would be tempted. Gui Liao could feel that Yang Kai wasn't at his peak and he seemed to be injured, which wasn't a surprise since he must have gotten into quite a number of fights as he fled from the royal city to here. Despite that, he was still able to showcase such terrifying strength. How formidable would he be if he was in top condition? Nevertheless, this realization came too late. After killing Liu Ziyan, an overbearing Yang Kai turned his azure dragon spear into countless phantoms and engulfed Gui Liao with them. In an instant, Gui Liao felt immensely pressured. He madly pushed his Black Ink strength and cast several secret techniques in an attempt to save his own life. The Black Ink clan no longer hesitated to launch their attacks on Yang Kai. As a result, Yang Kai staggered while his blood spurted out of his wounds, but he remained unperturbed. Gui Liao was feeling both helpless and frustrated at the moment. He had no idea why Yang Kai only targeted him even though there were many Black Ink clansmen around. In fact, there were Black Ink clansmen who were closer to him, but Yang Kai ignored them and seemed determined to kill Gui Liao. Could it be that Yang Kai still hadn't gotten over the unfair treatment he had received in the castle? If that was really the case, Gui Liao felt that he was being unfairly blamed. However, he had no idea that the reason Yang Kai only targeted him was that he was the most powerful and authoritative figure among the Black Ink clansmen at the scene. Gui Liao was He Yuan's confidant, so killing Gui Liao would be akin to weakening He Yuan's power. Besides that, Gui Liao was indeed more powerful than other feudal lords. As far as Yang Kai was concerned, it wouldn't be long before Gui Liao would ascend to become a territory lord. When that happened, the humans would have a new formidable opponent on the battlefield. It would be like nipping a potential problem in the bud by killing Gui Liao here. Martial Peak, Chapter 5100, Enraged He Yuan. With that consideration in mind, and as the chance was rare, it was expected that Yang Kai wouldn't let Gui Liao off. Faced with the aggressive onslaught, Gui Liao was forced back repeatedly. On the other hand, Yang Kai thrust out his spear in rapid succession. Gui Liao realized that he could only ward off the opponent's attacks, but not counterattack. This made him feel shocked and infuriated. He had never expected that such a 7th Order human existed in this world. Over the years, he had frequently followed He Yuan to the battlefield and fought with many 7th Order masters, however, none had ever made him feel that he couldn't defeat them. At this moment, a sense of despair overwhelmed him as he was dealing with Yang Kai. Gui Liao used all the secret techniques he knew, but every strike Yang Kai made was overwhelming. In every exchange of blows, his black ink strength would be blasted apart on impact. Furthermore, Yang Kai's mobility was simply astonishing. Although the surrounding black ink clansmen managed to hit him from time to time, they were unable to seriously injure him. They only managed to cause some flesh wounds, which wouldn't change anything. "I'll die." That was the thought that flashed through Gui Liao's mind as a sense of anxiety gripped him. He had never expected that such a feeling would rise within him when he was facing a human in the same relative realm. This made him feel both ashamed and unresigned. He still had a bright future ahead of him, and he was about to attempt to ascend to become a territory lord. That was why he wasn't willing to lose his life here. Before He Yuan sent Yang Kai to the royal city, he told Gui Liao that he would let him enter the main black ink nest and make a breakthrough to the territory lord realm upon his return. Gui Liao had been looking forward to it. However, several territory lords had recuperated in the black ink nest recently, so it was running low on energy. Therefore, He Yuan didn't immediately let Gui Liao enter the black ink nest upon his return. Instead, he spent a massive amount of resources trying to replenish the black ink nest's spent energy. Over the past few years, the black ink nest had almost restored all its energy, and it would only take another 6 months before Gui Liao could attempt a breakthrough. When he succeeded, he would be a new territory lord, which would put him on par with He Yuan. Nevertheless, before his dream could become a reality, it was crushed by Yang Kai's spear. Presently, Gui Liao was soaked in blood, and facing the azure dragon spear, he felt his aura weakening by the breath. Regardless of how hard he tried, he was unable to resist Yang Kai's bombardment. The attacks were both sharp and unpredictable, with the spear always coming at him from the most unexpected angle, making it impossible to counterattack. Every strike also brought with it a strange power that sealed off the space around him. Just a short while later, Gui Liao was left with more than 10 serious wounds on his figure. The most severe injury was on his abdomen, which now had a hole the size of a fist in it. Just when Gui Liao felt he was about to lose his life, a formidable aura suddenly appeared in the distance. Yang Kai and Gui Liao, who were locked in battle, detected this familiar aura at the same time. The former turned solemn while the latter was elated. This couldn't be helped, as the newcomer was none other than He Yuan. This place was He Yuan's territory, and his feudal lords had scattered around to intercept Yang Kai. The moment Gui Liao and the Black Ink clansmen got into a fight with Yang Kai, He Yuan naturally detected it and hurriedly came over. He Yuan could move swiftly, so not long after Yang Kai detected his aura, he caught a glimpse of He Yuan approaching. Gui Liao promptly exclaimed, "Sir Territory Lord, save me." Yang Kai fell into a dilemma as he hesitated between fleeing immediately and killing Gui Liao. The next moment though, he summoned all of his strength and thrust out his spear. At the same time, Gui Liao's figure was reflected in Yang Kai's right eye. The reflection slightly contorted, and at that instant, Gui Liao, who was attentively resisting Yang Kai's attack, seemed to be struck by an immense pressure. There seemed to be a mysterious force that was contorting his body. His figure stiffened while he was overwhelmed by an excruciating pain. This moment of sluggishness cost him dearly. The azure dragon spear directly pierced through his chest, and as the violent force exploded, his figure split in half. Black blood and black ink strength scattered across the void. A hint of disbelief flashed through Gui Liao's eyes. Although he hadn't lost his life yet, his death was inevitable given his injuries. Yang Kai couldn't help but close his right eye as blood dripped down from it. Myriad Demons' Heaven's Eye secret techniques were indeed incredible, however, Yang Kai had yet to fully master them, and he had already consumed a lot of energy prior to this battle. Forcefully activating this eye secret technique caused a huge burden on him. Fortunately, he managed to kill Gui Liao with the help of this eye secret technique, cutting off a potential crisis for the human race. It could be said that his efforts were worth it. Since He Yuan was about to reach him, Yang Kai naturally wouldn't want to stay here, and he quickly pushed his space principles in an attempt to flee. Nevertheless, the Black Ink clan's bombardment of attacks caused the surrounding void to become unstable, so he was unable to leave immediately. On the other hand, Gui Liao, who was cut in two, turned ferocious as his half-figure came right at Yang Kai. He spread his arms in an attempt to detain Yang Kai as he yelled, "Don't even think about escaping." Yang Kai hadn't expected this guy to be so savage. Just when he was almost captured by Gui Liao, Yang Kai hurriedly pushed out his spear and turned Gui Liao's top half into mist. Unfortunately, thanks to this moment of delay, He Yuan finally reached him. Black ink strength surged around He Yuan as he sported a furious expression, and he directly extended his hand towards Yang Kai. At this critical moment, Yang Kai wouldn't dare to be negligent. All of a sudden, a gigantic ancient tree appeared behind him. The tree crown seemed able to cover the entire sky. Its low-hanging branches turned into the strongest defense for Yang Kai. He Yuan struck the tree crown with all his might. The branches rustled upon impact as points of green light flew out everywhere. Towering evergreen was instantly broken through, and as if struck by a huge hammer, Yang Kai was sent flying away while he sprayed out a mouthful of blood. It was expected that Yang Kai couldn't resist a territory lord's all-out attack. If not for his towering evergreen's fantastic defensive power, he would have lost his life then and there. It could be said that He Yuan was completely enraged. After all, he was the one who turned Yang Kai into a black ink disciple and recommended him to the royal lord to take part in the plan. In the end, the Black Ink clan's grand plan was destroyed because of Yang Kai, and even the critical person in charge of the project, Nian, was dead. This was a huge failure that even a territory lord like him couldn't bear. It was imaginable that the royal lord was mad with rage, and her fury would surely be vented out on him. All of this was Yang Kai's fault, so it was expected that He Yuan would be furious. Honestly speaking, when he received the news from the royal city, He Yuan couldn't believe what he was hearing and suspected that the other side was mistaken. After all, before he captured Yang Kai back then, he saw the latter going all out to resist and even give up a part of his small universe twice, which almost caused his order to regress. Since he was unable to turn things around, he even decided to commit suicide. It was only then that He Yuan made a move and corrupted him. Was everything he saw that day nothing more than an act? Were those the lengths this human was willing to go to in order to sneak into the Black Ink clan's territory? If that was true, he was truly a cunning and devious person. Despite knowing that the humans were sly, He Yuan hadn't expected them to be so deceitful. He regretted not examining Yang Kai's small universe after capturing him back then. If he had done so, none of this would have happened. At that time, he firmly believed that he had successfully corrupted Yang Kai. In his defense, the humans never granted one of the 4 universe pillars to 7th Order Masters, so it never crossed He Yuan's mind that Yang Kai would be capable of resisting his Black Ink strength. The human was even audacious enough to pretend to be a Black Ink disciple and follow him to his territory. After several inquiries, He Yuan finally confirmed that the news from the royal city was true. It was only then that he realized he had been played by the humans all along. While he was recuperating, Yang Kai tactfully revealed his talent in artifact refining, which must have been part of the humans' plans from the beginning. Everything that had happened made He Yuan feel humiliated. As a result, he was burning with endless fury, which ensured that he did not hold back when sending out his last strike. However, he regretted it the instant he made a move, because the royal lord had ordered that Yang Kai be captured alive. It seemed that the royal lord had the intention of replacing Nian with Yang Kai, who would be tasked to continue building warships. Fortunately, Yang Kai was unusually strong and had used some kind of secret technique to save himself. Seeing that Yang Kai was still alive, He Yuan breathed a sigh of relief. If he had accidentally killed Yang Kai, he wouldn't be able to explain himself to the royal lord. Now, he could still make up for his mistake. Presently, Yang Kai was overwhelmed by a great sense of discomfort. He had already suffered a setback in front of Mu Guang, and then he consumed a lot of energy and became injured while escaping. Now that he was struck by He Yuan's attack, it was expected that he would be in a terrible state. It had to be noted that He Yuan was one of the top 5 territory lords who served Mu Guang, meaning he was significantly stronger than the average territory lord. If not for the great defensive power of his towering evergreen divine manifestation, and that Yang Kai had thick skin and strong flesh due to his dragon vein, he would have lost his life after being struck. Even so, he was still feeling dizzy and seeing stars at this moment. Many of his bones were also fractured. Steadying himself with difficulty and lifting his gaze, Yang Kai saw He Yuan standing not far away from him, while he was surrounded by a lot of Black Ink clansmen. As their eyes met, He Yuan suppressed his fury and said grimly, "You're really something." Yang Kai spat out a mouthful of blood and grinned, "Many thanks for your compliment, sir. I never expected that I'd come across you again. It seems that we share some common destiny, don't we?" He Yuan replied impassively, "Since it all started because of me, I'm sure the royal lord will be pleased if this matter is ended by me. Surrender without a fight. You're important to the royal lord, so I don't want to keep damaging you." Upon realizing what the other party meant, Yang Kai arched his brow. "Does the royal lord want you to capture me alive? An artifact refiner is only valuable if he's alive." Yang Kai replied, "It seems that Mu Guang intends to keep building warships." He Yuan looked sympathetically at him. "It's pointless to stall for time. Your old ancestor is still in a fight with the royal lord while the human army is far away from here. You don't stand a chance to flee. The humans have a saying, 'Do not refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit.' Resisting will only make you suffer. Who says I'm going to flee?" Yang Kai lifted his azure dragon spear and pointed it at He Yuan. With his chin raised, he appeared condescending. "It's not like I've never killed a territory lord before. I don't mind killing one more." He Yuan was slightly surprised. "You've killed a territory lord before?" However, he soon cast the doubt away as he strode towards Yang Kai. "Whatever. I can explain myself to the royal lord as long as you're not killed." As he stepped closer, his territory lord's pressure swept over Yang Kai. Marshall Peak, Chapter 5101, Like maggots on rotting bones. Yang Kai was on his last legs, so he wouldn't dare to be negligent when he was facing a territory lord. Although He Yuan didn't intend to kill him as he wanted to capture him alive, Yang Kai certainly wouldn't grant his wish. If he was really captured by He Yuan and sent to the royal city, he would become a servant for the Black Ink clan for the rest of his life. Before He Yuan could get close to him, Yang Kai drew on whatever power was left in his small universe. Strike first to gain the advantage. As the golden crow cawed, a great sun leapt from behind him, burning with a brilliant radiance. At the same time, a full moon rose as well, casting its frigid cold glow. As the sun and moon appeared simultaneously, space principles madly fluctuated. The sun and moon started spinning around in tandem, transforming into a kaleidoscope where space principles and time principles intertwined and formed into space-time strength before spiraling towards He Yuan. Sun and moon divine wheel. Faced with a formidable enemy like He Yuan, Yang Kai wouldn't dare to hold back any of his strength and directly used his most powerful method. He Yuan stopped in his tracks and instinctively felt a horrifying power coming from this secret technique. This caused his expression to turn solemn. Covered in the mysterious force, he even felt that his mind and body had been affected. Thick black ink strength erupted from his body and formed into a shield around him. Right after he did that, he was stunned to realize that the secret technique, which had looked far away just now, was already about to strike him. A violent force swept across the void and caused the local space to tremble. He Yuan was forced backwards several steps while the Black Ink clansmen who were surrounding Yang Kai were instantly vaporized despite only being hit by the attack's fallout. A moment later, the terrifying force settled. He Yuan stood there stiffly, a strange and mysterious force wandering around his figure like arcs of lightning. The surviving Black Ink clansmen stared at He Yuan in shock, as they were worried he had been killed just like that. After all, they had witnessed how terrifying Yang Kai's secret technique was. They had no idea what would happen to their territory lord after being struck head-on by such an attack. Fortunately for them, even though He Yuan seemed affected by the secret technique, he wasn't at risk of losing his life. Just a moment later, his figure shook and the lingering arcs of lightning around him were shattered. After he sprayed out a mouthful of black blood, his aura weakened slightly. He then turned to look in a different direction and gritted his teeth. The next instant, he transformed into a dark light and shot forward. It wasn't until this moment that the surviving Black Ink clansman realized that Yang Kai was gone. Apparently, Yang Kai ran away right after he cast his secret technique. However, They were not powerful enough to resist the influence of the secret technique on their senses, so they were not aware that Yang Kai had fled. He Yuan was far stronger though, so he definitely wouldn't let the wretched human off. Just then, Yang Kai reappeared from the void. He staggered and almost couldn't support his own weight, his face as pale as a sheet of paper. Presently, he was like a lamp that was running out of oil. There was no doubt that the heritage of his small universe was indeed far richer than those of the other Seventh-Order Open Heaven Realm Masters. However, since he started fleeing from the sealed world near the royal city, he had been constantly manipulating space principles and pushing himself to his limits. It also took him quite a bit of effort to kill Liu Zi and Ngui Liao earlier. Furthermore, he almost used up all his energy to cast his most powerful secret technique at He Yuan. Fortunately, he had the World Tree clone with him, otherwise, his small universe would have been affected given the state he was in. That would have been a huge problem. Yang Kai wouldn't dare to remain and quickly fished out a handful of open heaven pills from his space ring and stuffed them into his mouth. Although open heaven pills couldn't help restore his power quickly, it was better than nothing. Moreover, the living creatures in his small universe would continuously produce world force for him, which helped restore his strength over time. The moment he took a step forward though, Yang Kai realized that an aura had locked onto him from afar. There was no doubt that it was He Yuan. As a Black Ink territory lord, he could easily ascertain Yang Kai's whereabouts as long as the latter wasn't too far away. Yang Kai cursed. He didn't expect his Sun and Moon Divine Wheel to kill He Yuan. After all, there was a huge gap between their powers as He Yuan was in a higher relative realm. Despite that, he still hoped that the Sun and Moon Divine Will could wound He Yuan and tie him down for a moment. As long as he could escape He Yuan's perception range, he could shake him off and gain some safety. However, Yang Kai hadn't expected that He Yuan would recover so quickly. Now that he had been targeted by He Yuan's aura, it wouldn't be easy to get rid of him, unless Yang Kai could continuously use instantaneous movement to open a large gap between them. Nevertheless, Yang Kai was unable to do so at this moment. He couldn't even activate instantaneous movement once, let alone repeatedly. Left with no choice, he could only try to restore his energy while doing his best to flee. An enraged He Yuan moved across the void swiftly, shortening the distance between them. To add insult to injury, Yang Kai would come across some Black Ink clansmen who got in his way from time to time. There was no doubt that they were all residents of He Yuan's territory. Upon receiving He Yuan's order, they started forming into different teams to cover a wide range. There were only a small number of people in every team, ranging from 10 to 30, their leader usually a single feudal lord. Although these Black Ink clansmen couldn't harm Yang Kai, they could slow him down. Yang Kai either had to avoid clashing with them or force his way through them. Regardless of what option he took, he would have to consume both strength and time. Barely 1 hour later, Yang Kai broke through his third blockade. However, He Yuan was also getting closer to him. Seeing that it would reach a critical point where He Yuan would be able to make a move against him, Yang Kai hesitated no more and pushed his space principles. By using instantaneous movement, he disappeared from the spot in an instant. He used up what little energy he had recovered with that one move. Over the next day or so, such incidents would happen roughly every hour. The gap between Yang Kai and He Yuan would shorten and widen in a seemingly endless cycle. Yang Kai felt extremely bitter as he was unable to get rid of He Yuan, who was just like maggots on rotting bones. On several occasions, he almost couldn't widen the gap between them at the most critical moments, allowing He Yuan's attacks to graze him from afar, which exacerbated the horrible situation he was already in. By straining himself for a long period of time, Yang Kai realized that his vision had turned blurry. The pounding of his heart against his chest could clearly be heard, as though it couldn't endure the immense strain and would explode at any moment. While he was trying his hardest to escape, He Yuan wasn't exactly feeling any better. Pursuing such a fast and tricky enemy had left him exhausted as well. However, in order to make up for his mistake, he would never let Yang Kai go. Only by capturing Yang Kai and bringing him to the royal city would he be able to appease the royal lord, otherwise, he would be doomed. The warship plan was critical to the future of the entire Black Ink clan, yet it was ruined because of his negligence. It was expected that the royal lord wouldn't easily let him off. With one escaping and the other pursuing, the pair crossed billions of kilometers in the void. Initially, Yang Kai thought that things would get better after he left He Yuan's territory. After all the Black Ink clansmen he came across all along were He Yuan's subordinates. However, he realized he was mistaken upon fleeing from He Yuan's domain. Instead of getting better, things actually got worse. The Black Ink clansmen he bumped into in He Yuan's territory only came in small teams, therefore, he was able to force his way out despite being besieged. However, right after he left He Yuan's territory, Yang Kai came across an entire Black Ink clan army. It was an army consisting of several tens of thousands of troops. Among all those Black Ink clansmen, Yang Kai clearly detected a powerful aura coming from another territory lord. Moreover, the direction they were traveling suggested that they were heading towards Yin-Yang Pass. If Yang Kai rashly charged forward, he wouldn't stand a chance to escape. The territory lord in charge of the army just had to cooperate with He Yuan, who was chasing him from behind, and they would easily capture him. Soon, Yang Kai came to realize something. The Black Ink army wasn't there to intercept him. Instead, they were heading to the main battlefield. In order to facilitate the old ancestors' plan and save Yang Kai, the humans had emptied out Yin-Yang Pass. Certainly, the Black Ink clan had to meet the humans in battle. The territory lords and feudal lords called the roll in the shortest time possible and set out towards Yin-Yang Pass from all different directions. The army before Yang Kai's eyes was just one of many. At that instant, Yang Kai fell into a dilemma. If he continued heading in Yin-Yang Pass direction, he would only come across even more Black Ink clan armies. Even if he was in peak condition, he still could never hope to break through all of their blockades, unless the masters from Yin-Yang Pass could work with him to open a safe passageway. However, Yang Kai was in a terrible state, and he hadn't managed to restore a lot of his strength, so this idea was not feasible. Once he blindly used instantaneous movement, he might land right in the middle of a large Black Ink clan army. When that happened, it would be akin to stepping right into the enemy's trap. It was impossible for him to avoid running into these Black Ink clan armies and return to Yin-Yang Pass. Worse, every enemy army had a territory lord overseeing it, as they were practically the territory lord's own subordinates. He Yuan alone was able to leave Yang Kai battered and exhausted. If he had to contend with other territory lords as well, he would fall into an even more horrible state. Nonetheless, where could he go if he couldn't return to Yin-Yang Pass? While he was hesitating, the territory lord from the army up ahead scanned his surroundings with his divine sense and seemed to detect Yang Kai's presence. After gritting his teeth, Yang Kai turned around and transformed into a ray of light. Soon, the territory lord's divine sense detected a trace of aura left behind by Yang Kai. After giving it a thought, he soon figured out what was happening. However, he was tasked with dealing with the humans' army, so he wouldn't dare to be distracted. A moment later, he decided to ignore it and retracted his divine sense. The moment Yang Kai turned in a different direction, He Yuan followed, a hint of surprise flashing across his face. He was surprised to realize that Yang Kai didn't head straight towards Yin-Yang Pass, but after pondering on it for a moment, he soon figured out what Yang Kai was worried about. He snorted and thought, "Where else can you go if you can't go back to Yin-Yang Pass?" He Yuan had somewhat figured out the condition that Yang Kai was in, so he firmly believed that as long as he persevered, he would capture Yang Kai sooner or later. Now, he just had to wait for Yang Kai to lose all of his strength. While he was in his thoughts though, he suddenly lost track of Yang Kai. The realization astounded him. Marshall Peak, Chapter 5102, A Bold Plan. Mid-pursuit, He Yuan suddenly stopped in his tracks and spread out his powerful divine sense to scan the surroundings. However, regardless of how hard he tried, he couldn't find Yang Kai's whereabouts. This caused his expression to darken. "I can't believe I lost him. How is that even possible?" Yang Kai was on his last legs with little energy left. How did he escape He Yuan's range of perception in such a state? He Yuan didn't think Yang Kai was powerful enough to cut off the thread of aura he had locked onto him, as there was a huge gap between their powers. If Yang Kai was capable of doing that, He would have done it earlier instead of waiting until now. Moreover, He Yuan didn't feel that his aura was forcefully cut off. Rather, it felt like Yang Kai just vanished somehow. The only logical explanation was that Yang Kai had massively widened the gap between them in an instant. As a result, He Yuan's aura wasn't able to locate him. However, Yang Kai didn't have much strength left. Even though he could use a special technique that would help him move across several tens of thousands of kilometers in an instant, he couldn't possibly have done such a thing repeatedly in his current state. How could he have regained so much energy in such a short period of time? With a gloomy expression, He Yuan stood still in the same spot, not knowing what to do. The void was expansive, so now that he had lost track of Yang Kai, how was he supposed to look for him? But soon, he pulled himself together. The Black Ink clan's armies were heading in Yin-Yang Pass direction, so Yang Kai couldn't possibly go that way. That was the reason he turned around and continued fleeing. In other words, regardless of where he was still within the Black Ink clan's territory. As long as Yang Kai was still in their territory, his whereabouts would be exposed sooner or later. At the thought of this, He Yuan started taking action by heading to the fief of a feudal lord nearest to this place. The feudal lord of the fief had led his tenants towards the battlefield, so although there were still a lot of Black Ink clansmen who stayed behind, none of them was particularly powerful. Since He Yuan had shown up, these weak Black Ink clansmen would naturally obey his orders without question. Soon, with the Black Ink nest in this place as the center, word was spread across all of Mu Guang Royal Lord's domain. Within moments, Black Ink clansmen from all over could be seen searching for Yang Kai. Meanwhile, Yang Kai was hiding in a Black Ink cloud and recuperating. Just like He Yuan had speculated, Yang Kai had relied on instantaneous movements to shake off his tracking aura. The reason he had enough energy to use instantaneous movement repeatedly was that he had consumed a low-rank world fruit. When he left the Grand Ancient Ruins boundary back then, Yang Kai brought 16 world fruits with him. The 3 mid-rank world fruits had been put to good use while the remaining 13 low-rank world fruits were somewhat useless. He had given 1 low-rank world fruit to Guozi Yang, which allowed him to ascend from the second order to the third order open heaven realm. As for the remaining low-rank world fruits, he basically had no use for them. Although they came from the world tree, they were not valuable to him at all. Most had stayed in his small universe for such a long time that Yang Kai had almost forgotten about them. It wasn't until his small universe was thoroughly exhausted this time that he recalled them. Although they were not valuable, they were the best spirit fruits to replenish one's world force. After consuming a low-rank world fruit, Yang Kai regained enough strength in his small universe in a short time to use instantaneous movement several times in a row. It was thanks to the low-rank world fruit that he shook off He Yuan and hid inside this Black Ink cloud. Even though he was safe for the time being, he knew that he would not be safe for long as he was still deep inside the Black Ink clan's territory. There was no way He Yuan would let him off. At least he finally had a chance to take a breather. It felt terrible to have so little energy left in his small universe. If he had enough energy, he could fight or flee despite being no match for his opponents. Upon making sure that He Yuan hadn't found him, Yang Kai quickly tried to restore his energy. He didn't consume another low-rank world fruit. With this experience, he naturally wouldn't waste something that could quickly restore a large amount of his strength. Instead, he stuffed a lot of open heaven pills into his mouth before fishing out a set of 7th-order materials to refine in order to replenish his spent world force. Unfortunately, this moment of rest didn't last long. Barely half a day later, Yang Kai felt several auras barge into the Black Ink cloud he was hiding in. Those auras were not powerful, only high-rank Black Ink clansmen. With a frown, Yang Kai tried his best to conceal his aura. There were countless Black Ink clouds of different sizes in the Black Ink clan's territory and usually, the Black Ink clan wouldn't pay them any mind. However, the fact that these high-rank Black Ink clansmen carefully searched this Black Ink cloud showed that they were looking for Yang Kai. Initially, Yang Kai hoped that they would be negligent so that he could continue recuperating. Unfortunately, one of the high-rank Black Ink clansmen directly flew towards his hiding place. A moment later, the high-rank Black Ink clan stood right in front of him. Lifting his gaze, he saw a vague figure hiding somewhere inside the Black Ink cloud, but before he could get a closer look, he saw a fist flying out and striking him. As the violent force exploded, the high-rank Black Ink clansman turned into a blood mist without even a chance to scream. "Over there!" one of the Black Ink clansmen exclaimed upon detecting the movement. As soon as he finished speaking, he was struck by an immense force and sent to the afterlife. 2 breaths of time later, young Kai dashed out of the Black Ink cloud. The high-rank Black Ink clansmen who had barged into the Black Ink cloud had all lost their lives. "That human is here. We found him. Quickly inform Sir Hei Yuan." The moment the surrounding Black Ink clansmen saw young Kai, they became startled for a moment before coming to their senses and shouting. Young Kai looked around and realized that the Black Ink clansmen were scattered everywhere. They were thoroughly searching through the void in order to ascertain his whereabouts. Although they were weak, there were too many of them to avoid. Hei Yuan didn't think these weaklings could harm young Kai, he just wanted to make sure that young Kai had nowhere to hide. Amidst the chaos, the Black Ink clansman closest to young Kai cast a secret technique at him. Young Kai secretly cursed. Although he knew that Hei Yuan wouldn't let him off, he hadn't expected the other party to move so swiftly. Judging from the way these Black Ink clansmen searched for him, it seemed that he would have nowhere to hide no matter where he went. After dodging the attack, young Kai summoned his Azure Dragon Spear and displayed his supreme limitless spear art to the enemy. Despite being besieged by so many Black Ink clansmen, he managed to force his way out. Those Black Ink clansmen hadn't expected young Kai to be so ferocious, but after suffering a setback, they had learned their lesson. Wherever young Kai went, they would keep their distance and not directly engage him. Young Kai continued charging forward until there were no longer a lot of Black Ink clansmen around him. It was then he manipulated space principles and left this area using instantaneous movement. A moment later, Hei Yuan arrived, but after asking around, he could only snarl through clenched teeth, "Keep searching for him. When you find him, do your best to delay him. Anyone who dares not to fight will die by my hand." Upon receiving the order, these Black Ink clansmen wouldn't dare to disobey Hei Yuan despite feeling bitter. Soon, young Kai realized that he was like a rat that these Black Ink clansmen were determined to corner. Wherever he went, the Black Ink clansmen would soon find him. Furthermore, he realized that the way these Black Ink clansmen dealt with him had changed. Initially, he just had to kill a few of them and the rest would flee, allowing him to escape with little effort. Now, however, these Black Ink clansmen refused to back down regardless of how ferocious he was. It was as though they were determined to drag him down even if they had to die. However, without a territory lord around, how were they supposed to stop young Kai from escaping? Their reckless charge only caused even more casualties. Presently, young Kai was glad that the Yin-Yang Pass armies had tied down the main Black Ink clan force, otherwise, he couldn't have kept moving around the Black Ink clan's territory. At the very least, the only territory lord he had to deal with so far was Hei Yuan. Mu Guang Royal Lord was locked in battle with the old ancestor from Yin-Yang Pass while most of the territory lords had probably left this place to intercept the humans from Yin-Yang Pass. Perhaps there were still some territory lords who stayed back in Mu Guang's territory, but there wouldn't be a lot of them. Young Kai reckoned that he would be fine as long as he was cautious enough. The only problem he had to face was how he could get rid of Hei Yuan and circumvent the Black Ink clan's army to rejoin the people from Yin-Yang Pass. That was indeed a difficult task. With that said, he was already in a better situation than before. At the very least, he had restored some of his strength, so unlike some time ago he was no longer running on empty. Most of the territory lords must have headed to the battlefield, so there wouldn't be a lot of them who stayed back. At the thought of this, young Kai racked his brain and came up with a bold plan. The more he thought about it, the more he was inclined to believe that this plan was feasible. If this plan was successfully carried out, it would deal a heavy blow to the Black Ink clan. He became excited in an instant. Hei Yuan would never have thought that young Kai would be so reckless. Since he had made a decision, young Kai did not hesitate to carry out his plan. After killing for a bit, he stopped dealing with the Black Ink clansmen around him and manipulated space principles to flee. Hei Yuan had been in a terrible mood recently, but despite feeling vexed, he had no way to vent his anger. Just like he had expected, Yang Kai didn't have a chance to leave the Black Ink clan's domain after escaping from him and was instead now wandering around the Black Ink clan's territory. With the help of the Black Ink nests, Hei Yuan could easily get feedback from different places and accurately locate Yang Kai. However, this method couldn't help him capture Yang Kai. Every time he received the news and rushed to the place where Yang Kai appeared, he would only find the corpses of Black Ink clansmen while Yang Kai was nowhere to be seen. Although he was stronger than Yang Kai, he didn't have a chance to make a move against him, leaving him feeling frustrated and helpless. In his fury, Hei Yuan even killed 100 or so Black Ink clansmen who had retreated in fear when they confronted Yang Kai. Based on what Hei Yuan learned from the surviving Black Ink clansmen who had fought with Yang Kai, he confirmed that this annoying human was recovering. Yang Kai seemed to be doing his best to restore his energy, and after such a long period of time, he should have almost fully recovered by now. Nevertheless, Hei Yuan didn't understand what Yang Kai was up to. Since Yang Kai had almost restored all of his strength, he should be trying to leave the Black Ink clan's territory. However, from the looks of it, he didn't seem to have any intention of doing so. Instead, he seemed to be enjoying the game of hide-and-seek with the Black Ink clansmen. During this period of time, several thousand Black Ink clansmen were killed by his spear, and although only several of them were feudal lords, as most were high-rank and low-rank Black Ink clansmen, it was still humiliating for Hei Yuan. Marshall Peak, Chapter 5103, Destroying Black Ink Nests. Hei Yuan was moving across the void at the speed of lightning as he headed straight to a particular battlefield. When he finally arrived at his destination, what came into his sight were corpses and broken limbs scattered all around. They were the Black Ink clansmen who were killed. Many of the horribly injured Black Ink clansmen groaned in pain. The battlefield was like a living hell. After sweeping a glance over the place, Hei Yuan estimated that more than 100 Black Ink clansmen were dead. He sported a grim expression. Since he started chasing after Yang Kai, he had encountered the same sight many times. Whenever he received the news and rushed over, he would see the same sight. On the other hand, Yang Kai would always run away before he arrived, leaving no chance for him to act. He had never come across a human who was as skilled as Yang Kai when it came to fleeing. Despite his burning fury, he had no way to vent it out. The surviving Black Ink clansmen wouldn't dare to go near Hei Yuan upon his arrival. Recently, Hei Yuan had killed many of their companions. If Hei Yuan blamed them for not doing their best and decided to kill them, they would be wronged. In fact, they had tried their hardest to stop Yang Kai earlier. However, how were they supposed to make him stay behind when they were no match for him? They could only watch as Yang Kai went on a killing spree and then left. Since no Black Ink clansman took the initiative to tell him what happened, Hei Yuan asked grimly, "Where did he go?" A high-rank Black Ink clansman closest to him pointed in a particular direction with caution. Hei Yuan turned to look in that direction and frowned. That was because his territory was in that direction. Although a large area of the void could be considered his territory, his foundation was where his Black Ink nest was located. That was his direct territory. Upon that realization, Hei Yuan felt his chest tightening. As he recalled the route Yang Kai had been moving around, he suddenly had a bad premonition. It seemed that Yang Kai wasn't aimlessly wandering around anymore, he was heading towards a particular goal. Just then, a feudal lord rushed over from afar. Upon reaching Hei Yuan, he said anxiously, "Sir Territory Lord, something terrible has happened. What makes you so nervous?" Hei Yuan turned to look at him, the ominous feeling in his chest strengthening. This couldn't be helped, as this feudal lord was in charge of the fief that was closest to his Black Ink nest. This feudal lord was also responsible for monitoring the perimeter. He must have received some shocking news, so he rushed over and informed Hei Yuan about it. As expected, the feudal lord replied, "We've received word that Yang Kai is invading your territory, sir." Hei Yuan's head started buzzing as though it had been struck by a hammer. While feeling dizzy, he also instantly figured out Yang Kai's plan and roared, "How dare he!" He had never expected that Yang Kai, who was all on his own, didn't have the intention of fleeing at all. Instead, he wanted to raise hell when most of the Black Ink clan had left for war. It had to be said that Yang Kai was truly audacious, and his move caught He Yuan off guard. Many of the territory lords who worked for Mu Guang had left their domains to deal with the human army from Yinyang Pass. Therefore, there was a serious lack of soldiers in their home territories right now. That was also the reason He Yuan was unable to capture Yang Kai after such a long time. Now, Yang Kai was heading straight to his territory. Although there were a lot of feudal lords left behind, He Yuan wasn't confident that they could repel Yang Kai. After all, he had witnessed the latter's capabilities during this pursuit. On the other hand, it was apparent that Yang Kai was aiming for his black ink nest. The foundation of a feudal lord or territory lord's territory was their black ink nest. Without a black ink nest, they couldn't be considered a real feudal lord or territory lord. This was what Jia Jiyu taught Yang Kai back then. A massive amount of resources had to be consumed to grow a black ink nest. For a feudal lord's black ink nest to hatch and fully mature, it required a colossal amount of resources, not to mention a territory lord's black ink nest. In comparison, the resources needed to grow a territory lord's black ink nest were many times more than what would be required to nurture a feudal lord's black ink nest. If his black ink nest was destroyed, He Yuan's foundation would be gone for good. That would be an unbearable blow to him. Although he could still get a new subnest from the royal lord and hatch it, it would be a heavy burden on the royal lord's black ink nest. Furthermore, it would also cost the royal lord a lot of time and energy to do this. Also, after such a catastrophic failure, it wasn't even certain whether the royal lord would still give him a new subnest. Throughout the war against the humans, it wasn't rare for feudal lord black ink nests to be destroyed. However, only a tiny number of black ink nests belonging to territory lords were ever destroyed. It was a great humiliation to the Black Ink clan for a territory lord black ink nest to be destroyed, and the only way to wash this shame away was by killing many more humans. With a great roar, He Yuan flew straight towards his home territory. At the same time, he prayed that the feudal lords who stayed behind could stop Yang Kai. He also hoped that Yang Kai didn't really intend to destroy his black ink nest. However, it was apparent what Yang Kai's plan was by him heading straight to his territory. It was likely that he had his eyes on the black ink nest. After all, he had pretended to be a black ink disciple and lived in this place for years, so he might have heard of the black ink nest's secrets from somewhere. While feeling worried, He Yuan was moving forward at full speed. Given that he was a territory lord, it would usually take him half a day to return to his territory from the previous location, but in his haste, he managed to arrive in just 4 hours. When he finally arrived at the universe fragment where his direct territory was located, what came into his sight made him feel cold all over. That was because the universe fragment had been shattered and traces of the battle could be seen everywhere. The originally flourishing city was nothing but a disaster zone now. Every part of the place had been turned into ruins, and innumerable Black Ink clansmen had lost their lives. All of that was inconsequential though compared to what happened to the Black Ink nest, which was originally in the center of the city. The Black Ink nest, which had always looked like a giant flower bud, was starting to wither. Black Ink strength was leaking out of the Black Ink nest like fresh blood, and its roots had clearly been cut off by a violent force. What He Yuan dreaded had become a reality, and he could not accept it. The Black Ink nest was withering, and it couldn't be saved. In other words, his foundation had been destroyed. In order to rebuild his foundation, he would need a new Black Ink nest. Even if the royal lord was magnanimous enough to give him another subnest from her Black Ink nest, it would take He Yuan at least 100 years to nurture it and cost him an enormous amount of money and manpower. To make matters worse, the feudal lords working for him would all experience the same problem. In other words, he and his subordinates had to rebuild everything from scratch, which would take a very long time. Sir. A blood-soaked feudal lord detected He Yuan's aura, so he quickly shot into the sky. Where is Yang Kai? He Yuan growled through clenched teeth. He couldn't detect Yang Kai's aura, so he could only hope that the feudal lords had killed him. With that said, he knew that it was unlikely to be the case. We did not see that human named Yang Kai, the feudal lord replied. He Yuan snapped, you didn't see him? Then what happened to my territory? What happened to the Black Ink nest? Did you all destroy it? The feudal lord shuddered and quickly replied, Sir He Yuan, we really didn't see Yang Kai. Everything was destroyed by a grand dragon. He then hurriedly gave an account of what had happened. According to this feudal lord, a grand dragon which was far more than 20,000 meters long had appeared out of nowhere. It was overbearing, and its entire figure radiated a golden glow. As soon as the grand dragon appeared, a lot of Black Ink clansmen were killed by its opening dragon breath. Strangely, the grand dragon was holding a huge spear in its claws. With this weapon, it smashed the universe fragment to pieces and destroyed the Black Ink nest, leaving the entire city in ruins. What was even more outrageous to the Black Ink clansmen was that the grand dragon had even robbed their shops and snatched up their resources. Although the feudal lords tried their best to resist, they couldn't possibly defeat the grand dragon. After kicking up a storm, the grand dragon nonchalantly departed, leaving this mess behind. The Black Ink clansmen knew nothing about grand dragons as they had never seen such creatures before. Fortunately for them, the Black Ink disciples had some ideas. Grand dragon? How could there be a grand dragon here? He Yuan appeared puzzled. The feudal lord replied cautiously, according to the Black Ink disciples, Yang Kai is probably not a human, but rather a member of the dragon clan. That grand dragon was his true form. He Yuan roared, I don't care whether he's a human or a member of the dragon clan. Find him. I must rip him to pieces. Only by doing so could he vent his fury. He was so enraged that he had even forgotten about the royal lord's order, which stated that Yang Kai had to be captured alive. But sir, the feudal lord spoke in a shaking voice, since the Black Ink nest is destroyed, we can't send any messages. He Yuan grabbed him by the collar and yanked him towards himself, his eyes practically spitting fire as he snarled, since the Black Ink nest is gone, go out and inform everyone yourself. Mobilize all the clansmen in the territory. Leave him nowhere to hide. If you can't do that, all of you must die. Yes. The feudal lord replied anxiously. After the feudal lord flew off, He Yuan turned to look in a different direction. There seemed to be a mysterious force that was dissipating in the void. The energy fluctuations were consistent with what Yang Kai would leave behind each time he used instantaneous movement, therefore, He Yuan speculated that Yang Kai had fled in that direction. Previously, he already didn't have a way to capture Yang Kai, and now that his Black Ink nest was gone, he knew it would be even harder to locate him. Nevertheless, he had to get his revenge after his foundation was destroyed. Despite his slim chances, he had to hunt Yang Kai down. Regardless of the cost, he had to capture that damn human and bring him to the royal lord to make up for his mistakes. At this moment, in a place that was far away from the universe fragment, Yang Kai was hiding inside a Black Ink cloud and recuperating. After assuming his grand dragon form and making a scene in He Yuan's territory, not only did he shatter the universe fragment, but he also destroyed He Yuan's Black Ink nest. It was expected that he would be pleased with himself. However, he had paid a hefty price to achieve this victory. There were indeed a lot of feudal lords who had stayed behind, and there were also innumerable high-rank and low-rank Black Ink clansmen around. Although he could easily kill more people when he was in his grand dragon form, it also made him a huge target. While Yang Kai destroyed the Black Ink nest, he also inevitably got struck by the Black Ink clansmen's attacks. To the Black Ink clansmen, he had made a scene and left the place in a nonchalant manner, however, only Yang Kai knew that he wasn't as nonchalant as he appeared to be when he left. In truth, he just didn't dare to remain, otherwise, he would most likely be captured. Presently, his entire figure was covered in wounds. Every time he moved, he would grimace in pain. 3 wounds on his back were so deep that one could even see his bones. Fortunately, these injuries didn't injure his foundation, and given his intrepid physique and astonishing restorative powers, he would recover in no time. Marshall Peak, Chapter 5104, Implicated. Yang Kai's trip of turning into a grand dragon and making a fuss in He Yuan's territory was rewarding. Not only had he killed a lot of Black Ink clansmen, but he had also destroyed He Yuan's Black Ink nest and snatched a massive amount of cultivation resources. The price he paid was worth it. When Yang Kai pretended to be a Black Ink disciple back then, he already realized that the city where He Yuan's Black Ink nest was located was flourishing. There were ample supplies, which included all sorts of materials of different orders. The Black Ink clan couldn't directly use these resources, so they were basically thrown into the black ink nests to help produce black ink strength. Nevertheless, these were precious cultivation resources for the humans. Since Yang Kai decided to make a move, he certainly had to take those resources away. Furthermore, there was one discovery that surprised him. He realized that his Grand Dragon form had lengthened. When he was in the Divine Spirit's ancestral land in the Shattered Heaven back then, he made use of the Dragon Palace and ancestral strength to become a Grand Dragon. At that time, his Grand Dragon form was 10,000 meters long. Then, with the help of Big Brother Huang and Big Sister Lan in the chaotic dead territory, his dragon vein was significantly enhanced, which allowed him to turn into a 20,000-meter Grand Dragon. At that time, Big Brother Huang and Big Sister Lan respectively left a mysterious power in his body that could stimulate the power of his dragon vein. Even after Yang Kai reached 20,000 meters in his Grand Dragon form, he had a feeling that the mysterious power hadn't been used up and most of it still remained hidden in his dragon bead. Then, he got into a fight with Ju Feng. At the critical moment, he spat out his dragon bead and dealt a lethal blow to Ju Feng, which caused his dragon bead to be damaged. Over the years, the damaged dragon bead had slowly healed with the nourishing of his dragon vein. Now, it seemed his dragon vein had also been strengthened. When he transformed into a Grand Dragon in He Yuan's territory, he was nearly 30,000 meters long. Apparently, the damage to his dragon bead had stimulated the mysterious power left behind in his body by Big Brother Huang and Big Sister Lan. During this period of time, not only had his dragon bead gradually healed, but his dragon vein had also been strengthened. This came as a pleasant surprise. The strength of a Grand Dragon was manifested in their length. Usually, only a 10,000-meter dragon could be regarded as a Grand Dragon, which was equivalent to a 7th-order Open Heaven Realm Master. Now that Yang Kai's dragon form was 30,000 meters long, his power was equivalent to that of a peak 7th-order Master. However, there were pros and cons to fighting as a Grand Dragon. Since his Grand Dragon form was so massive, he could cause serious damage over a wide area, especially when doing things like destroying He Yuan's territory and the Black Ink Nest some time ago. There was no doubt that it was easier for him to achieve his goal by turning into a Grand Dragon. Nevertheless, his large size also meant that he wasn't as agile or maneuverable. He might suffer a setback if he faced certain opponents in such a state. Fortunately, there were no powerful beings in He Yuan's territory at that time. Although the feudal lords had gone all out, they couldn't really kill him, only inflict some injuries on him at most. Presently, Yang Kai was recuperating in a black ink cloud with peace of mind. However, he knew that he couldn't stay here for long. According to past experiences, these omnipresent black ink clansmen would soon find him, and more black ink clansmen would quickly arrive to hunt him down. As expected, barely 1 hour later, some black ink clansmen barged into the black ink cloud and found his whereabouts. Yang Kai charged forward and easily killed these black ink clansmen, and soon, he arrived at a different place and snuck into a new black ink cloud. When the nearby black ink clansmen rushed over upon receiving the news, Yang Kai was already nowhere in sight. Over the following days, Yang Kai kept changing his locations as he seized every chance to recuperate. Soon though, he realized something was off. The black ink clansmen were reacting much slower than before. Previously, regardless of where he went, as long as his whereabouts were exposed, a large number of black ink clansmen would promptly swarm in from all directions and besiege him. Now, it seemed that they couldn't mobilize as quickly. This was a situation he had already expected though. Yang Kai had learned some secrets behind the black ink nests. With He Yuan's black ink nest as the center, all the feudal lord black ink nests formed a huge information network, which was used to spread information quickly. Now that he had destroyed He Yuan's black ink nest though, the central node was gone for good, disabling the information network between the black ink clansmen. That was the reason he decided to head straight to He Yuan's direct territory. Only by disabling their information network would he be able to move around easily. Now, it seemed that he had made a wise decision. Although he was still on his own, Yang Kai had already greatly improved his situation. Nevertheless, destroying He Yuan's black ink nest was just the first step of his plan. Since the black ink nests were the foundation of the Black Ink clan, he naturally wouldn't want to leave so soon as this chance was rare. Even though the Territory Lord's black ink nest was gone, there were still a lot of feudal Lord black ink nests remaining. For every black ink nest that was destroyed, it would cause a huge loss to the Black Ink clan. It only took young Kai a few days to fully recover, and after fishing out a universe chart to ascertain his own location, he looked for the nearest feudal lord's fief. Soon, he found a target. However, the situation he came upon surprised him a bit. After killing some Black Ink clansmen who were searching for him along the way, he soon reached his destination, but the huge black ink nest was already withered and collapsed on the ground, as though it was dying. Countless Black Ink clansmen knelt around the black ink nest with solemn expressions. It seemed that they were holding a kind of sacred ceremony. The feudal lord at the front crossed his arms and chanted something. However, regardless of how hard they tried, they couldn't save the black ink nest from dying. Its black ink strength was leaking out like fresh blood, and for every bit of black ink strength that was lost, the aura of the black ink nest would weaken a little. It seemed that this black ink nest would wither and die within half a day. Yang Kai flew forward as though no one else was around, while the black ink clansmen, who were completely focused on the ceremony, didn't detect his presence. Standing in front of the black ink nest, Yang Kai swept his gaze around and frowned, a perplexed expression on his face. The feudal lord at the front finally detected Yang Kai's aura and turned his head. When he made out Yang Kai's face, he snapped, "It's you." It wasn't until this moment that these black ink clansmen came to their senses and stood up. In the blink of an eye, Yang Kai was surrounded by all these black ink clansmen. Yang Kai turned to look at the feudal lord and nodded gently, "Brother Jia Ji Yu." The feudal lord was none other than Jia Ji Yu, who was the owner of this fief. Yang Kai had been here once and witnessed everything when Jia Ji Yu planted the black ink nest and hatched it. It was also through Jia Ji Yu that he learned a lot of the secrets about black ink nests that the humans were previously unaware of. The way Yang Kai addressed Jia Ji Yu startled him. With a doubtful look, he glanced at Yang Kai and asked, "You? Is the rumor about you real? Have you betrayed Sir Territory Lord?" Yang Kai replied impassively, "I'm a human, and I've never pledged to be loyal to him. How could you say that I've betrayed him? As for the rumor, I have no idea what you've heard, but it's most likely to be true." Jia Ji Yu snapped, "Did you destroy Sir Territory Lord's black ink nest?" Yang Kai nodded, "En." Then, he pointed to the front with a perplexed expression, "What happened to your black ink nest?" The reason he came all the way here was to destroy this black ink nest. Besides the one here, he had decided to destroy all of the feudal lord black ink nests under He Yuan. Only by doing so could he deal the heaviest blow to He Yuan. After all the black ink nests were shattered, He Yuan and his subordinates would lose all of their foundation. This was a bigger contribution than killing several tens of thousands of black ink clansmen on the battlefield. "My black ink nest," Jia Ji Yu appeared furious. "My black ink nest is a subnest of Sir Territory Lord's black ink nest. Since you've destroyed the Territory Lord's black ink nest, do you think the subnest wouldn't be affected?" In fact, Yang Kai already had a speculation the moment he saw this black ink nest. However, when his speculation was verified by Jia Ji Yu, he was still surprised. Prior to this, he wasn't aware that the death of a Territory Lord's black ink nest would affect the feudal lord black ink nests it spawned as well. After giving it a thought though, he realized that it wasn't so surprising. Jia Gu's black ink nest was a subnest of He Yuan's black ink nest, so there was a close connection between them. Since He Yuan's black ink nest was destroyed, it was expected that Jia Gu's black ink nest would be implicated. Following a moment of deliberation, Yang Kai asked, "Is your black ink nest the only one that's been affected? Or have all the feudal lord black ink nests been implicated as well?" Jia Ji Yu said through gritted teeth, "Do you think I'll tell you?" Yang Kai nodded, "Don't bother, I think I've figured it out." Judging from the situation Jia Ji Yu was in, it wasn't hard to speculate that the other feudal lord black ink nests had been affected as well. They were probably all withering at this very moment. Initially, Yang Kai planned on destroying all the black ink nests in He Yuan's territory one by one. Now, it seemed that it wasn't necessary for him to do so. As a thought flashed through his mind, Yang Kai asked, "Brother Jia Ji Yu, What if the royal lord's black ink nest is destroyed? Don't even dream about destroying any black ink nest ever again, Jia Jiyu roared. Apparently, he no longer wanted to listen to any of Yang Kai's nonsense. He extended his hand and summoned a giant halberd. At the same time, a dark fog swirled around his figure and soon, he was clad in an artifact armor that covered the upper half of his body. The giant halberd and artifact armor were the artifacts that Yang Kai previously refined for him. With the giant halberd in hand and the artifact armor on his body, Jia Jiyu appeared quite imposing. He directly thrust out his halberd at Yang Kai. Presently, Yang Kai was holding his azure dragon spear, and faced with the attack, he didn't intend to dodge. His spear thrust forward like a dragon and skirted past the giant halberd before jabbing towards Jia Gu's chest. A hint of ferocity flashed through Jia Gu's eyes as he also didn't intend to dodge the attack. He exerted even more force with the giant halberd as he was determined to wound the other party despite knowing that he would be injured as well. He was aware that Yang Kai was extraordinarily powerful. After all, he had witnessed Yang Kai going on a killing spree back then. Those feudal lords were as frail as paper tigers when they were dealing with Yang Kai, and Jia Jiyu didn't think he was more powerful than them. Even though he had 2 artifacts in his possession now, he didn't think he could defeat Yang Kai in a one-on-one fight. In order to survive, he had to take risks despite knowing he would get hurt as well. In fact, it was a good idea, but when the azure dragon spear easily stabbed into his chest and its explosive force shattered all the organs in his body, he still appeared bewildered. With a dispassionate expression, Yang Kai looked at him and said, "I'm the one who made that artifact armor. It's ridiculous that you think you can use it to defend against me." Jia Jiyu came to his senses and asked, "Are there weaknesses in all the things you've made?" Yang Kai roared, "The things I've made will not be used to go against my people. None of them will shed a drop of blood because of those artifacts." Marshall Peak, Chapter 5105, Pleasant Surprise. "I was the one who helped you back then." The ferocity on Jia Gu's face faded. Faced with imminent death, he pleaded with the other man. Yang Kai looked around and nodded, "I can't deny the fact that you'd helped me before, but how did your black ink nest come about? How did you gather enough resources to hatch this black ink nest? Do you really think I have no idea? All you have now is because of me, and it's only apt that I am compensated for my work." As soon as he finished speaking, he channeled more world force into the azure dragon spear and Jia Jiyu exploded, leaving no traces behind. There was no denying that they had gotten along pretty well, and Yang Kai had earned a lot of black ink coin with his help and made himself known as an expert in artifact refining. However, he was pretending to be a black ink disciple at that time, and Jia Jiyu was just making use of him. They were fundamentally on different sides, so Yang Kai had no qualms about killing him. A feudal lord was still a pretty significant force on the battlefield, so if Yang Kai let him off on this day, some humans might be killed by him in the future. Jia Jiyu was still in the early stage of building his fief, so he was the only feudal lord here and the rest of them were insignificant. There weren't even that many high-rank black ink clansmen. As Jia Jiyu was dead, these black ink clansmen couldn't possibly ward off Yang Kai. Despite their resistance, they were all killed within a cup of tea's worth of time. By the time Yang Kai was gone, no one was alive in the fief. Yang Kai initially wanted to destroy all the feudal lord black ink nests under He Yuan's wings, but what he saw in Jia Gu's fief made him realize that it wasn't necessary to do so. In fact, after a territory lord's black ink nest was destroyed, all the subnests it spawned would be affected. That explained why, after he destroyed He Yuan's black ink nest, the Black Ink clan became slower in their response. After He Yuan's black ink nest was destroyed, not only was the information network in He Yuan's territory disabled, but all the subnests had also withered. The feudal lords who had their own fiefs must be flustered now, so they wouldn't be in the mood to search for Yang Kai despite He Yuan's order. To play it safe, Yang Kai decided to head to another feudal lord's fief to see it for himself. Just like what happened in Jia Gu's fief, the feudal lord's black ink nest was withering, and its black ink strength was leaking out. It would die in no time. Finally, Yang Kai could set his mind at ease. It never crossed his mind that destroying He Yuan's black ink nest would bring about such a pleasant surprise. It seemed that there were pros and cons when it came to the special connection between the black ink nests. Inferring from this, if the black ink nest in the royal city was destroyed, all the territory lords' black ink nests would wither, which would lead to the decline and eventual fall of all the black ink nests in Mugwang's territory. Yang Kai couldn't help but have the urge to head back to the royal city and shatter the royal lord's black ink nest. Nevertheless, he soon gave up on the idea. This couldn't be helped as, given his current strength, he could only make a scene in a territory lord's territory as most of the black ink clansmen had gone to the battlefield. However, if he barged into the royal city, it would be akin to stepping right into the enemy's trap. He would be doomed. After all, there was more than one territory lord guarding the royal city. At the thought of the royal city, Yang Kai couldn't help but recall the old ancestor from Yinyang Pass. With the help of the ancient coin, a void corridor was formed and the old ancestor arrived and saved him before getting into a fight with Mugwang. A few days had passed, so he wondered if there was any outcome now. Although the old ancestor was powerful, the battle took place near the royal city, after all, so she might not gain the upper hand since she was on her own. Nevertheless, he wasn't in any position to worry about her. Given his current power, he was unable to intervene in the fight between the royal lord and the old ancestor. Perhaps 8th Order masters could assist the old ancestor in this situation, but a 7th Order master like him was still too weak. Yinyang Pass army and the Black Ink clan's main force must be clashing at the front line as well. Yang Kai had no idea what was going on over there, but judging from the collective powers between the two races, the human army would have to return to the inner sanctum soon. That was because there was a huge gap between the numbers on both sides. Furthermore, the Black Ink clan did not care about casualties. On the other hand, the life of every human soldier was valuable. The humans were in a disadvantageous position by fighting against the Black Ink clan in the void. They could significantly reduce casualties by staying near Yinyang Pass. The reason the army had left Yinyang Pass this time was that they had to facilitate Yang Kai's return. However, he was unable to circumvent the Black Ink clan and join up with those from Yinyang Pass back then, as he was in a horrible state. It was destined that the soldiers from Yinyang Pass wouldn't achieve their goal. Therefore, Yang Kai speculated that the soldiers from Yinyang Pass should have retreated by now. Presently, Yinyang Pass must be surrounded by the Black Ink clan. The two races had gotten into a battle where one side would defend while the other side would attack. It was the pattern of battle they were most familiar with. Over the years, this kind of battle had taken place at every great pass numerous times. Be it the humans or the Black Ink clan, they were already familiar with how this would go. If that was indeed the case, the situation would be in Yang Kai's favor. Since the Black Ink clan's army had gathered outside of Yinyang Pass, there wouldn't be any blockades in front of him. He could stealthily head to the battlefield and wait for a chance to return to the inner sanctum during the fighting. He had done the same thing when he and Feng Ying saved several hundred Black Ink disciples and brought them back to Blue Sky Pass previously. However, Yang Kai didn't intend to do that. He had a taste of successfully destroying He Yuan's Black Ink nest, which resulted in the fall of all its subnests. As this was a rare opportunity, Yang Kai naturally didn't want to miss it, as he reckoned that it wouldn't come again. Therefore, he left He Yuan's territory several days later and headed towards another territory lord's territory. He had no idea whose territory it was, nor did he know where that territory lord's home territory was. Regardless, it didn't matter to him. He directly headed to the feudal lord's fief nearest to him and went on a killing spree. In just half a day, most of the Black Ink clansmen in this fief were either dead or dying. Some of the Black Ink clansmen seized the chance to flee from the place, but Yang Kai didn't have the intention of pursuing them. To him, destroying the Black Ink clan's foundation was the most important objective, while killing stray Black Ink clansmen came second. Moreover, the most powerful Black Ink clansmen in this fief had followed their feudal lord and left for the battlefield, so the ones who stayed back were undoubtedly weak. Yang Kai then directly barged into the Black Ink nest in this place. This was a feudal lord's Black Ink nest, and with the prior experience of visiting Jagu's Black Ink nest, Yang Kai soon realized that the inner structures of all Black Ink nests were more or less the same. There were still some Black Ink clansmen inside the Black Ink nest, but they appeared oblivious to what had happened outside. The moment they saw a human entering this place, they were puzzled. They were all killed by young Kai before they realized what was happening. A moment later, young Kai stood inside an empty chamber and opened the portal of his small universe. His word force was instantly drawn by a powerful force and absorbed by the black ink nest. With his world force serving as a bridge, he was soon connected to the consciousness of this black ink nest. He had done the same thing in Jargu's black ink nest back then, so he was familiar with the process. The next instant, young Kai found himself in a special space where a lot of consciousnesses wandered around. This was the secret behind the information network that the Black Ink clan had built using the black ink nests. These Black Ink clansmen had entered this place through the consciousnesses of the feudal lords' black ink nests. They could then exchange all sorts of information here and find out what was going on in the other feudal lords' fiefs. The arrival of a new consciousness like young Kai's didn't catch the attention of the Black Ink clansmen. After all, there would be unfamiliar consciousnesses entering the place from time to time, so they were used to it. After listening to them for a while, young Kai realized that he couldn't gather any useful information. He wanted to find out what was going on at the front lines through the conversations between these consciousnesses, but the latest information from the battlefield was apparently not available to these Black Ink clansmen who stayed behind. Just when he was ready to carry out his plan, a message was sent from a consciousness. The message wasn't encrypted in any way, so the other consciousnesses could easily read it. Young Kai soon found out what the message was about. The royal lord is still in a fight with that human. I wonder if she can kill her. Another consciousness replied, that human is the old ancestor of Yin-Yang Pass. Although the royal lord is powerful, it's not easy for her to kill that human. However, I heard that several territory lords have gone over to help. With their assistance, I believe that human will be defeated. No. From the looks of it, the royal lord is in a disadvantageous situation. Although she has the help of several territory lords, both parties are only equally matched now. The moment the message was sent, the other consciousnesses were evidently shocked. One of the consciousnesses asked, how could it be that the royal lord is at a disadvantage? They've fought with each other countless times in the past, and they've always been equally matched. Neither side could defeat the other. What happened this time? The consciousness from earlier replied, I have no idea, but for some reason, they arrived somewhere near our fief and continued fighting. My feudal lord was the one who saw it. Fortunately, they soon left, otherwise, our fief would have been destroyed. We wouldn't be able to defend against the fallout from their battle. Could it be that the royal lord hasn't recovered? That's possible. However, the royal lord has the help of some territory lords now, so the human old ancestor certainly won't get the upper hand. The consciousnesses continued chatting and soon changed the topic. Although young Kai hadn't gathered a lot of information, he had at least found out that the old ancestor was fine. On the other hand, he was surprised at the fact that the royal lord had fallen into a disadvantageous position. It never crossed his mind that the seemingly unreliable old ancestor from Yin-Yang Pass would be so powerful, able to battle against the royal lord and several territory lords on her own. He wondered what the outcome of the battle would be. Nevertheless, he didn't have the right to interfere in this matter, and he had bigger fish to fry. He then focused on sensing his surroundings. According to Jargu, this special space was actually a platform linked to the consciousness of the territory lord's black ink nest. The consciousnesses of the subnests could easily connect to it, which allowed the feudal lords to communicate with one another. In that case, young Kai reckoned that he could make use of it and find out the whereabouts of the territory lord's black ink nest. Marshall Peak, Chapter 5106, This Won't End Here. Following the faint traces, young Kai's consciousness tracked the signs back to the source and soon found what he was looking for. Although he wasn't certain about the exact location of the territory lord's black ink nest, he was confident that he got the direction right. As long as he moved in that direction, he would find the territory lord's black ink nest. Since he had achieved his goal, he retracted his divine sense and left the feudal lord black ink nest before shooting into the sky. He didn't waste any of his energy to destroy this feudal lord's black ink nest since all the feudal lord black ink nests were linked to the territory lord's black ink nest. As long as he destroyed the source, all the feudal lord black ink nests would wither as well. The moment Yang Kai's consciousness left this special space, a certain consciousness temporarily fell into a dazed state in another similar but even more magnificent space. The consciousnesses of the feudal lords' black ink nests would gather together in the special space transformed from the consciousness of the territory lord's black ink nest. Similarly, the consciousnesses of the territory lord's black ink nests would assemble in the special space transformed from the consciousness of the royal lord's black ink nest. This even bigger space was where the consciousness of the royal lord's black ink nest was located. The consciousnesses that had gathered together in this place came from the territory lord's black ink nests. Hence, the consciousnesses in this place represented the territory lords. Upon detecting the anomaly, the other consciousnesses quickly inquired about it. The consciousness from earlier fell silent for a moment and said hesitantly, "Just now, someone seemed to be searching for my location." "Someone was searching for your location?" Another consciousness asked curiously. The third consciousness was equally inquisitive. "What's the point of ascertaining your location? Are you mistaken?" The first consciousness replied, "Maybe. I'm not sure about it." Since he had said so, the other consciousnesses stopped asking about it. This matter ended here, and they went on to talk about another topic. What's going on with that human named Yang Kai? Has Sir He Yuan captured him? There's no news about him yet, but it seems that human has destroyed Sir He Yuan's black ink nest. What? Sir He Yuan's black ink nest was destroyed? When did that happen? Another consciousness exclaimed. It was apparent that he had not heard about this news yet. It happened not long ago. The person guarding the black ink nest sent me a message at the last moment. Apparently, the human named Yang Kai directly invaded Sir He Yuan's home territory. Now, we can't contact anyone from Sir He Yuan's side. Our connection with them has been cut off. The other consciousnesses fell into silence. Something must have gone wrong as they were unable to contact anyone from He Yuan's side. The only possibility was that He Yuan's black ink nest had been destroyed, otherwise, this shouldn't have happened. All of these consciousnesses felt their hearts sinking at the revelation that a human had destroyed a territory lord's black ink nest. At the same time, they felt furious and humiliated. The only thing they knew was that He Yuan was chasing after the human, but they had no idea whether he would succeed. The consciousnesses felt that the topic was too depressing, so they quickly moved on to another. They started discussing the war between the two races and tried to speculate on the outcome. While they were engrossed in the discussion, a certain consciousness suddenly exclaimed. As the conversation was cut off, the other consciousnesses looked at him in puzzlement. The consciousness explained, "Some feudal lords reported to me that the human named Yang Kai came to our territory." "He's in your territory? What is he doing there?" "Regardless of what he is up to, quickly inform Sir He Yuan about it so that he can come over to help. Also, mobilize the Black Ink clansmen in your territory and restrain the human until Sir He Yuan arrives. We must not let him flee." "Got it." The moment the consciousness finished speaking, he passed on an order through the Black Ink Nest network and the Black Ink clansmen in his territory started taking action. The other consciousnesses waited with concern as they asked about what was going on from time to time. Certainly, the consciousness wouldn't hide anything from them. Half a day later, a consciousness suddenly said in a puzzled manner, "The human doesn't seem to be running away from Sir He Yuan. Instead, go on. It seems that he has targeted my territory lord's Black Ink Nest." Upon hearing that, the other consciousnesses paled, especially the one who represented the area of the territory lord's Black Ink Nest where Yang Kai was located. Just then, another consciousness said, "Earlier, you said that someone was trying to figure out your location, right?" The consciousness that represented the area of the territory lord's Black Ink Nest where Yang Kai was located replied, "Yes, that's what I felt." "Wait, you mean?" "That's right. The human named Yang Kai didn't know the exact location of your territory lord's Black Ink Nest, so he made use of a feudal lord's Black Ink Nest to find it. He then headed straight to your place after that. His target is the territory lord's Black Ink Nest." "What?" the consciousness exclaimed. "What should I do?" "What about Sir He Yuan? Have you reached him?" "Sir He Yuan is on his way, but is still far away from the human. It seems that he can't arrive in time to stop him. Assemble the feudal lords to stall him. We must not let that human destroy another territory lord's black ink nest. Otherwise, it will be a humiliation we can never wipe away. When Sir He Yuan reaches there, he'll easily capture that human. It's too late. The consciousness sounded despondent. Why? It seems that young Kai has arrived. I can feel the fluctuations of battle outside. How is it possible that he has arrived so soon? The other consciousnesses were astounded. Are you sure that human is there? It's not a human. It's... What are you talking about? What do you see? It's a monster that's several tens of thousands of meters long with a humongous spear in its claws. The feudal lords can't block him. It's heading straight for the black ink. Ah! The shriek sent a shockwave across the other consciousnesses. Although they were not the ones experiencing the disaster, they could feel how heart-wrenching it must have been for their companion the moment they heard the shriek. Feelings of panic and fear overwhelmed these consciousnesses, causing them to tremble. The black ink nest's consciousness was a medium through which one could connect with the other consciousnesses via divine sense. Although one could communicate with others swiftly and easily, he had to promptly cut off the connection when he fell into danger. Otherwise, his soul would die following the destruction of the black ink nest. This was an unbearable pain for any living creature. This won't end here. The consciousness wailed. The message made the entire space descend into despair. The next moment, the consciousness vanished into thin air, as though he had never existed before. The other consciousness fell into silence in this special space. Another consciousness tried to contact him, but regardless of how hard he tried, he couldn't reach the other side. In the meantime, in a particular territory lord's home territory, a colossal black ink nest was cut down by the azure dragon's spear. A violent force caused the entire black ink nest to collapse and countless black ink clansmen lost their lives while the expansive territory shattered. Those black ink clansmen tried their hardest to repel the enemy, and many attacks of varying power were sent out at the 30,000-meter-long dragon. Although most of the attacks were weak, they came in massive numbers. The golden dragon scales on the dragon trembled upon impact, and as its gigantic figure flew across the void, dragon blood fell to the ground. Yang Kai didn't intend to keep fighting with them. After destroying the black ink nest and killing those who got in his way, he went on to snatch up as many resources as he could before turning around and escaping. A while later, he withdrew his dragon form and returned to his human form. Following that, he manipulated space principles and disappeared from the place with a flicker. The black ink clansmen dashed out of the broken territory and fearlessly pursued their hated enemy. However, they soon lost track of Yang Kai and could only aimlessly search for him. The territory lord's territory behind them was now in a giant mess. After a long time of silence, the consciousnesses that had gathered together in the grand space formed from the consciousness of the royal lord's black ink nest finally started reacting. One of the consciousnesses said, "Another territory lord's black ink nest has been destroyed. We haven't received any definitive news yet, so it's too early to say that. The truth is right before our eyes. Why else wouldn't we be able to contact them? You might want to deny it, but you can't change the fact that a calamity has happened." It was a several tens of thousands of meters long monster with a huge spear in its claws that destroyed the black ink nest. What was it? It's a grand dragon. According to the black ink disciples, a grand dragon is a powerful being. Sir He Yuan's black ink nest was destroyed by that same grand dragon. Furthermore, from what I've gathered, Yang Kai is not a human. The grand dragon is his true form. I don't care whether he's a human or grand dragon, he's destroyed 2 territory lord black ink nests so far, and I don't have to remind all of you that before our comrade passed away earlier, he said that it won't end here. I'm sure you all know what that means. A consciousness asked in horror, does that mean that Yang Kai is going to destroy even more territory lord black ink nests? In order to repel the human army, the territory lords have left for the battlefield with their respective armies. Apart from a few territory lords who have remained in the royal lord's territory to guard the royal city and coordinate other matters, there are no powerful masters left. Moreover, some of those territory lords had to join up with the royal lord to fight against the human old ancestor. It's not surprising that young Kai would seize this chance to raise chaos. Although Sir He Yuan has been hunting him down, he hasn't managed to achieve his goal so far. The human's next target could be me, or any one of you. Upon hearing that, those consciousnesses became apprehensive. We can't pin all our hopes on Sir He Yuan. To put it bluntly, if he was able to capture the human, the second black ink nest wouldn't have been destroyed. We have to save ourselves. How are you going to do that? That human is too powerful. We can't fend him off even if we have a lot of subordinates with us. Regardless of how powerful he is on his own. Moreover, he must be injured after destroying 2 territory Lord Black Ink Nest. I believe he'll have to recuperate for some time before acting again, so all of you don't have to worry. However, once he recovers, he'll probably make a move again. Do you have a suggestion? Tell us about it. The consciousness then told everyone about his plan, and the rest of them nodded in agreement. Marshall Peak, Chapter 5107, I've been waiting for you. Life hadn't been peaceful in Mu Guang's royal domain recently. First of all, the royal lord's plan that was hundreds of years in the making was derailed by a human just before its imminent success, flushing all her efforts down the drain. Then, the old ancestor of Yinyang Pass suddenly appeared in her territory and started a huge fight against her and several territory lords. Space shattered and many Black Ink clan fiefs were devastated while countless Black Ink clansmen were killed from the fallout of their battle. The human army from Yinyang Pass had also gone all out. The territory lords in the royal domain had no choice but to lead their own armies to deal with the humans. The Black Ink clansmen who stayed behind had no idea what was going on at the front line. Usually, they just had to wait patiently. After all, even though the humans were powerful, they could never break through the Black Ink clan's blockade and storm the royal domain. However, there was now a lone human who was raising all kinds of havoc in the royal domain when most of the powerful Black Ink clansmen were not around. He was the very human who derailed the royal lord's plan. This human wasn't particularly powerful. According to the classification of the humans, he was just a 7th-order master, equivalent to a feudal lord. Nevertheless, it was this 7th-order human who threw Mu Guang's royal domain into absolute chaos. In just half a month, he managed to destroy 2 territory Lord Black Ink nests and killed several tens of thousands of Black Ink clansmen. Although He Yuan was personally hunting him down, he hadn't achieved his goal so far. From what they had gathered, this human could transform into a several tens of thousands of meters long grand dragon and wield a gigantic spear in his claws. Once he got close, he could destroy a territory Lord Black Ink nest with one strike and shatter the universe fragment it sat on. The reason he was able to evade He Yuan's pursuit for so long was that he was a master in the Tao of space. With the help of space secret techniques, this human could move with shocking speed. Even if He Yuan was stronger than he was, he couldn't capture the human intruder without being able to restrict his movements first. After destroying 2 territory Lord Black Ink nests, the human went missing. However, the consciousnesses staying in the territory Lord Black Ink nests believed that he was recuperating somewhere. When he fully recovered, he would make a move on another territory Lord's Black Ink nest. This made the consciousnesses staying in the territory Lord Black Ink nests feel anxious as they were worried that one of them would be Yang Kai's next target. Black Ink clansmen were seen thoroughly searching for Yang Kai across the void, leaving no stone unturned. Nevertheless, they couldn't find the human after several days, as though he had vanished into thin air. This made many Black Ink clansmen suspect that Yang Kai might have left Mu Guang's royal domain. One day, a team of 20 or so were examining a cluster of thick Black Ink clouds. From what they had gathered, this human liked hiding in places like this. Therefore, the Black Ink clouds of different sizes that scattered across the void would be thoroughly inspected. After all, no one knew if he was hiding in a certain Black Ink cloud, just waiting to catch the nearby Black Ink clansman off guard. After they inspected all of the Black Ink clouds here though, they still couldn't find the human. Just when the team of Black Ink clansmen were preparing to leave, the leading high-rank clansman detected something and turned to look in a particular direction. What came into his sight astounded him, for a series of ripples had suddenly appeared in the void. As the ripples expanded, a portal glowing with a faint light abruptly formed. This high-rank Black Ink clansman was a quick-witted person, instantly realized something, and hurriedly ordered, "Hide." After he finished speaking, he led his team to charge into the nearest black ink cloud. They concealed themselves and withdrew their auras as best they could as quickly as possible. As they lifted their gazes, they saw that a portal had fully taken shape. While the ripples continued to expand, a figure appeared all of a sudden. He was the human that the Black Ink clan had been looking for. The high-rank clansman narrowed his eyes and soon realized something. It was no wonder that so many Black Ink clansmen were unable to find a trace of this human even after several days of searching. It turned out he had been hiding inside a sealed world. The portal that suddenly opened up was obviously a portal that led to that sealed world. Despite the distance between them, the high-rank clansman could clearly feel the aura coming from the portal. It was the aura of the world force that the Black Ink clan loved the most. So, that's how it is. Upon figuring out everything, the high-rank Black Ink clansman couldn't help but think that young Kai was blessed with luck to have found a sealed world and hidden inside it. It seemed that the news they had received was true. Young Kai had been badly injured when destroying the previous territory Lord Black Ink Nest and was hiding and recuperating recently. Although there were over 20 members in the group he led, this high-rank Black Ink clansman didn't dare to make a rash move upon sighting young Kai. He knew that this human was too powerful for them and he and his team were no match for him. Exposing themselves at this point would be no different from committing suicide. Despite acting swiftly though, young Kai, who had just stepped out of the sealed world, still sensed something and quickly looked in their direction. Apparently, he had realized they were there. As their eyes met, the high-rank clansman felt a chill shoot up his spine. Before he could react, young Kai pushed out his palm as his 7th Order Open Heaven Realms world force burst forth. Without having a chance to resist, the Black Ink clansmen hiding in the Black Ink cloud were all instantly killed. The high-rank Black Ink clansman thought that young Kai was simply lucky enough to have found a sealed world to recuperate in, but the truth was that luck only played a part in it. As a master of the Tao of Space, young Kai could easily find sealed worlds that the Black Ink clan hadn't discovered. Not only had he been recuperating during this period of time, but he had also picked clean all of the resources in this particular sealed world. Although he had already obtained an astonishing harvest from robbing the home territories of 2 territory lords, young Kai didn't mind collecting even more resources. He was already pleased that he could snatch so much from the Black Ink clan, and it was even more satisfying that he had also destroyed 2 territory Lord Black Ink nests. Just like the Black Ink clan expected, young Kai's next target was still a territory lord's Black Ink nest. Nevertheless, even though he had killed this search party, another nearby group of Black Ink clansmen soon noticed what happened. Realizing that young Kai might have appeared, they quickly spread the word. By the time everyone found out that young Kai had reappeared, he had arrived at a feudal lord's fief. With the previous experiences, young Kai was already familiar with how to look for the local territory lord's Black Ink nest. The Black Ink clansmen in this feudal lord's fief were weak, so it only took young Kai a little effort to kill them all. He then headed straight to the feudal lord's Black Ink nest. The moment he entered the central chamber, he opened his small universe and let the Black Ink nest absorb his world force. With that serving as a bridge, he connected himself with the Black Ink nest's consciousness. Just a moment later, his divine sense entered the special space with the Black Ink nest's consciousness as the medium. As usual, there were a lot of consciousnesses in this special space. These consciousnesses represented the feudal lords who had their own fiefs and Black Ink nests. Many of the feudal lords had left for the battlefield to fight against the humans. Despite that, other Black Ink clansmen could stay back and guard their Black Ink nests. Hence, young Kai wasn't surprised one bit. However, he soon realized that something was off. Previously, when he entered this space with his consciousness, the other consciousnesses didn't pay much attention to him. However, on this day, all the consciousnesses around him appeared hostile to him. Young Kai could clearly feel that these consciousnesses were paying close attention to him. Hostility and formidable powers exuded from these consciousnesses. Was I exposed? A thought flashed through young Kai's mind, but he soon realized something. In fact, it wasn't surprising. He had done the same thing before, so it was expected that the Black Ink clan had put their guard up. Nevertheless, since he had the audacity to make a move, he had the confidence to keep himself safe. The consciousnesses didn't intend to say anything to Yang Kai. The moment Yang Kai understood all this, however, the special space froze as a restrictive power spread across it, like a heaven-sealing earth-locking array. Yang Kai instantly appeared surprised, for he had never expected that such a turn of events would happen in this space. With that said, this space was transformed from the consciousness of a territory lord's Black Ink nest, so it wasn't surprising that there were secrets that he wasn't aware of. He tried cutting off his connection with the Black Ink nest, but he realized that it wasn't possible to do so. The space had been completely sealed up, so unless he could shatter this place's barriers, he couldn't possibly withdraw his divine sense. If he forcefully tried, his soul might be damaged. It seemed that his consciousness had been locked inside this space. "I've been waiting for you." The moment the space was sealed off, a voice reached him, one that sounded furious and vexed. Yang Kai could sense that this consciousness gave off a familiar aura. Moreover, this consciousness was unlike the others, it was far more powerful. It was like a crane standing among the chickens. A doubtful Yang Kai asked, "Hey Yuan?" The consciousness roared, "I'm glad that you recognize me." Yang Kai was astounded, "It's really you. So, you were waiting for me?" Hey Yuan replied, "En. I knew that you wouldn't stop trying to destroy the other territory lords' Black Ink nests, so I chose one and waited for you. It surprises me that you really came to Kong Chan's territory. It seems that I'm in luck." Yang Kai had no idea who Kong Chan was, but he reckoned that he was the owner of this territory, and a territory lord. The reason He Yuan decided to wait here was that Kong Chan's territory was the closest to the territory lord's territory where the Black Ink nest was previously destroyed by Yang Kai. He reckoned that Yang Kai would most likely come to this area. Now, it seemed that his wait was worth it, for Yang Kai had really come to this place. At that instant, He Yuan felt slightly less aggrieved. As a territory lord, he was equivalent to an 8th Order Open Heaven Realm Master. However, he had been trying to hunt Yang Kai down recently, but he couldn't even find out the latter's whereabouts. It was expected that he was frustrated. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.